Alrighty, looks like we're live. What is up, everybody, and welcome to Data on Kubernetes Community's very first, certainly not the last, DoK Explorers Day. Very excited to be with you here today. So excited that had to get started a little bit early. So we got a lot of stuff that we're doing today. We've got a very, very full agenda. Lots of things we're going to be covering. Got some dope talks that are pre-recorded that we're going to be sharing with y'all. Want to get your feedback on that. Very practical, hands-on from people that have a lot of experience. That being said, if you're not aware of the DoK Explorers initiative, super easy to find, figure out. You can check out the link to our Slack right here. Jump in. We'll be happy to get you onboarded. Another thing I wanted to mention, got a little video that we're going to be showing. I'm going to be showing quite a few videos today, actually. So let me get my first one geared up so we can get this properly started. Let's get out of there and get into here. Let's take a look. All right, very, very good. All right, so we're going to be taking a look at that. Perfect. Good, good, good. All right, so we're going to share a quick promo video that we got, all right, for our second promo video, actually, for DoK Day. That's coming up on October 24th. It's going to share our most recent video. Let me just make extra sure that we can get all the stuff that we need to there. I'm going to turn up the volume as well. Let's go for it.
The hour's approaching to give it your best. You've got to reach your prime. That's when you need to push yourself to the test and show us the passage of time. We're gonna need a montage. We'll take some montage. Show a lot of things happening at once. Remind everyone of what's going on. And with every shot, show a little improvement. So show it all would take too long. That's called a montage. We want a montage. And anything if you want to go from just a beginner to a pro, you need a montage. Even Rocky had a montage.
All right. So finishing up with that, I think that was a good way to start out. A lot of energy. As always, you see for DoK Day, we're getting ready with a lot of action, with a lot of excitement. We've got some amazing speakers from companies like Netflix that are going to be giving talks in DoK Day. You definitely want to check that out. So if you haven't signed up for that already, I'm going to drop the link here, all right, in the chat, all right, so you can sign up. It's 100% free. All right, it's 100% free if you're already signed up for if you're already signed up for KubeCon, all right? So all you have to do is add that to your KubeCon registration. Super simple, all right? Super simple. Sorry, I showed the wrong link there. I'm gonna get the right one. Good. So definitely check that out, all right? Like I said, because we are very much moving forward with all the attendees, all the attendance, the different preparations we have going on. I will be leaving to go to the United States on Friday, and we'll be getting into Detroit a couple days before the event to make sure everything's running smoothly. So like I said, we've got a lot planned for today. We've got a lot on the agenda. And so I want to start out with, if we're talking about an event, it's probably a good idea to know how to organize a good one. So to get that nailed down properly, we brought on some amazing guests, all right? Good friends of the Data on Kubernetes community. And they are the following people. We have Audra Montenegro, amazing person, used to be at DataStax, now doing stuff with the CNCF, also has experience with O'Reilly. Annalisa, Gennaro, who's one of the main organizers of KCD Italy. Sophia, Ramsel, who is killing it at SIVO. If you haven't checked out SIVO Navigate already, that's going to be an amazing event happening in February. And then also Renata Eckardt, who is absolutely rocking it all the way from Brazil, but living in Germany. So we got these wonderful folks on a panel to basically talk about, what are the necessary ingredients if someone is going to organize a good, successful event, all right? For a lot of people, it can be quite overwhelming, this idea of where do I start? What do I need? What are the do's? What are the don'ts? To make sure that you get the right ingredients, give the right mixture, the right objectives, all the different things that are going to go into that. So like I said, that being said, I'm going to get this video in there and we're going to get it started right about there. The events world, not exactly sure, Perfect. Cool. Okay, so if we're ready, we can get started. All right, everybody, very excited to be here for this panel. A lot of folks that are out there are interested in the events world, not exactly sure, what's important, how to get started, what skills are necessary. And I myself kind of found myself in this position, not expecting to be in it about 8 years ago, getting started with offline events, then moving into online, now a mixture of the two. So today I'm joined by 4 wonderful human beings that are in one way or another involved in the event space. And before we get started, I'd just like all of them to introduce themselves. So we're going to start in terms of what I can see on my screen. Audra, you are the furthest to the right. If you could introduce yourself, please.
Hi, folks. Audra Montenegro. I come from an event background in technology with O'Reilly Media, doing global events, anywhere from data to DevOps to software architecture, and then moved over to DataStax, joining the virtual world, doing podcasts and virtual events. So DataStax is a startup that promotes open cloud architecture. Database as a service is more so what they're known for. And now I'm with the CNCF working on KCD programs, so Kubernetes Community Days programs, which are led by the community. And thank you, Bart, for having me.
Of course. And we'll be talking more in detail specifically about KCD and some of the things that are going on there later on. Great to have you. Next up, we've got Renata. If you could introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Renata. I work for Any9s. And Any9s is a company that works with cloud native technology. We create tailored solutions for cloud. And I particularly don't come from a tech background, although I do have experience in participation and organization of events since 12 years, I guess. And yeah, now here we are coordinating Cloud Native SAR Meetup, which is an event to promote and build community around cloud native technology in Saarland in Germany, where I live.
Very, very good. Awesome. Next up, Sophia.
Hi, I'm Sophia, and I am Strategic Account Manager at Sivo, where I help out with sales and events. So we are a cloud native service provider that's focused on Kubernetes. So my background, helping plan anything from small meetups to big events like our one coming up in February that we're really excited about.
Very good. Fantastic. And last but certainly not least, Annalisa.
Hello everyone. I'm Annalisa Gennaro, and I work as head of marketing and communication for Spark Fabric, a silver member of CNCF, and a tech company focused on cloud native architecture and environment. We develop any kind of application, doesn't matter whether greenfield or modernization of legacy applications. And I fell in love with the community CNCF community last year. I've been working in this sector and field since 1.5 years only. And I found open source wonderland. I entered the glossary project as a first step, and then I entered the organization team for KCD Italy.
Very good. That's coming up in November. Awesome. So we got people from different places, different backgrounds, and I think that's what's going to make this a very rich conversation. So to get started, if we're talking about events, we often need to be thinking about what's an objective, right? Whether it's a birthday party, or if it's KubeCon, or if it's KCD, or different kinds of things with that in mind. When establishing objectives for an event, what are things that folks might keep in mind with that? Let's start out with you, Sophia. What's your take on that? What are objectives that you try to think about if you're organizing an event?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest one is going to be education. So we really want people to come in, learn about whether it be our company, new technologies, whatever it may be. Education and networking, I would say, are probably the biggest things that go hand in hand.
Very good. With that in mind, what are some of the things that you want to have before getting started? Like very often we might be thinking about metrics, how is this going to generate leads, building awareness. Some of these things might be more measurable than others. When approaching that, Audra, what's your take on that? How do you do it?
I love to have a solid organizer team. So you definitely need to have, balanced program committee too, along with that. And then definitely know your goals, set those first, and make them feasible, especially for first time events. And then also you want to deliver relatable content to your crowd. I'm specifically coming from tech events, so storytelling, use cases, that to me is relatable content, and less pitching of products. But if you're doing a vendor event, then that's a whole nother story. And then there's also like deep dive content, tutorials, workshops, training courses. And then, like Sophia said, great networking opportunities.
Very good point. And with that in mind, we often say, start with the end in mind. I think it's from Stephen Covey about, the 7 wonderful habits of highly successful people, a book that you can read in your own time. With that being said, and like you were mentioning, particularly the aspect of networking, Renata, in your experience, what are these things that you say, like, ideally our event is going to do the following? In your case, what are some of those final objectives that you have in mind throughout the course of the planning and execution of the event?
Well, specifically for Cloud Native SAR, our main objective is to build community. And in general, whenever I'm working any kind of event, this is my main objective as well. Not building community specifically, but just community, because I feel like over the years, I tend to, at least as in marketing, we tend to see people as sponsors or like target audience, but in the end it's all about community. If you're creating an event, either you are thinking about building community or creating awareness around the community, or want to discuss topics and products that are used and are interesting to this community, right? And if you are somebody that is attending to this event, you want to experience the sense of community. So in general, it doesn't matter the kind of event that you are creating. For me, the main objective is always community.
Very, very good point. We often think about, user experience, customer experience. I think event experience is also a thing about, what kind of environment do I need to create? As Audra mentioned, are we doing a deep dive? Is it more vendor focused? Is it more about getting folks together and sharing ideas? What based on those objectives, what are the things that I'll need to have in place? We use your example, Annalisa, as being very involved in Kubernetes Community Days Italy. What are some of the objectives that you have there? What are some of the things that you're trying to create?
We are talking about people at the end. So we just focus on people, on the fact that people need to meet for real. It's not even before the pandemics. It's we have been talked a lot about the pandemic effects, but it's not that. People need to meet in person, need to talk with people and to confront with them. So it's the objective is to nurture that need somehow, and of course to enhance knowledge. But I guess that it's like we all know about the marketing paradigm and B2C and B2B, and we all know that is something very old-fashioned somehow. We are talking about H2H marketing nowadays, because at the end, this is what we are talking about. There's a source, a target, and a message, and you just need to convey that message in with the best code you can find for that target. It sounds banal, but I think this is what communication is and what marketing is, and so what events are.
Very, very good point. As much as we can try to get as much as we can try to get in the technical side, I think we're all sort of agreeing on this community aspect of the need to come together. We look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the sense of belonging, something that's very strong on there for different people, and there are different ways that can be achieved. Now, something that was, sorry, go ahead, please.
No, and another objective we have is to create a safer environment where people can feel themselves. And
Absolutely.
This is something that I felt personally. It works, it can work, but it's tough at the beginning because we are in a very technical environment, in a very technical space. And as a non-tech person coming from another world, with other knowledge, it was hard enough to get into the behaviors and the processes and the mindset we have in open source, in the open source community. So the more models, the more people talk other languages, and the more community can grow.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point about breaking down assumptions that what might be obvious to some might not be to others. And this is something I've talked about a fair amount as well as a non-tech person who's entered a very technical space. Perhaps some of the challenges in the beginning and feeling out of place and over time realizing that wasn't the case, but something that I try to be mindful of that, you know, we want to be, if we talk about being welcoming, being inclusive, that these things are really important, that we can't, you know, compromise on them or leave folks out. That being said, I think it was you, Sophia, that mentioned the importance of planning and having a team. It was either you or Audra, I'm not sure, but we'll get to both of you. Don't worry. I would highly recommend to anyone who's going to organize an event, try not to do it alone. I am reasonably okay at certain things, and I am terrible at far many others. In order to have that proper balance, just like having a company, you know, you don't want 10 people just with the same mindset that are running an event. So with that in mind, what are some of the areas that you think, and I want to open this up to everybody. We'll start with you, Sophia. What are some of the areas that if someone's going to want to run a successful event, what are some of the things that they'll have to keep in mind? And based on that, different kinds of profiles, the right kind of mixture of people to get that going?
Sure. So, I mean, when you're planning an event, I think it's important to start the planning before you start planning. So I think you really need to have a community and a network around you of amazing people that all really band together to pull off an event. And then once you kind of get to that stage where you have your community, you have your network, it's working together with whether that be your team of executives and DevRels and people to really be able to pull this event off, not just the event team.
I think it's a solid point. If it's only a couple of people that are doing all the heavy lifting, it's going to be very, very difficult. And also limitations based on certain kinds of experience. As much as possible, build a robust team where people know what's expected of them. You know, I think that needs to be very clear. It's like, we want you on the team, but what do you want me to do? You know, what's going to be necessary there? I think that's a great point. Anything that you would add to that, Audra?
Yes, I found when I worked on content at O'Reilly Media events that a strong program committee was huge because their networks helped you in a lot of ways. So you could have somebody who could speak to the vendors who would be giving a 5-minute keynote as part of their package, and they would coach them on how to storytell and not pitch. And your program committee will also have a network to help your sales team, you know, find sponsorships. They also have a network of speakers. If you're not getting enough proposals submitted or you need a backup talk because your waitlist folks can't join last minute. And having the diversity within your program committee is huge too, and your organizer team. You just really want to bring balanced ideas to the table. And kind of going back to Annalisa's point, and yours too, Bart, about coming into the tech industry and feeling, you know, different or alienated. I forget who it was, but somebody, it was actually a guest on this podcast that I run. She was saying, it's great to be different because you really want to bring something different to the table that others don't. So really embrace your individuality and know that, you know, your difference is adding to what the event is and, you know, its values.
Couldn't agree more. And that provides differentiation so that it's not, oh, business as usual. I've seen this 100 times. And also that can provide particular challenges in an online format as opposed to offline, but offline as well too. I think we've all been in events where it's like, okay, I've kind of been in this before, been there, done that. You know, what's sort of the added value or extra ingredients there. And the more that I think people let that individuality, as you said, breathe into the event, people will feel that because the passion and excitement will be there, and I think those things will become clearer. That being said, you know, you mentioned the importance of program committee. I think it's a huge point. If we're thinking about objectives, who are the folks that I'm going to need involved to guarantee that we're going to get that right look and feel, that we're going to get the content that we need. And I think we're all in agreement too that you can never start too early. And so whatever you're doing in your dashboards and your Excels and your spreadsheets, move everything 2 to 3 months before, because
even longer.
These things
even
will happen.
Earlier.
Yeah, even earlier,
Even
2 years
earlier.
before if you
Yeah.
can. It's really never too early, but it's part of the process that, dates can get a little bit slippery. Now, when we get into that, maybe a little bit more, and I think one other thing I would like to mention though is that I see this with different event organizers, as we're all saying here, having a network of different people who can help out is really important. Some folks that are starting an event, they may have a Twitter account that has 100 followers or 200 followers, but they may have someone on their DevRel team that has 5,000, and so that person can help draw attention. Think about that, those kind of techniques to get that moving as well. Now, so we've got a little bit covered on the team. Not everyone's going to be an expert in social media. Not everyone's going to be an expert in establishing partnerships, negotiations, building budgets. There are different things we can think about there. In your case, Renata, how do you go about planning? Are there any tips and tricks that you might want to throw out there, things that you've noticed in your experience that are effective, or things to be avoided for that matter?
Planning. As an ADHD person, planning is not my strength, to be honest. It's something that I struggle a lot over the years, because it requires so much of thinking and making connections that will happen just in the future, and remembering all of those is not very easy to me. It doesn't come naturally, really. So to be quite honest, of course, we have a team, and we have a person that it's much more into planning than I am. But besides that, I really rely heavily in automation tools. And basically, it's my life. And the first thing I have to do every morning is my routine as a neurodivergent is to look at all the automation tools that I use and be sure that they are working in the proper way, that they have the correct metrics, that they have the correct triggers that will remind me of everything that I have to do on day to day until the event and after the event too, because one thing is that the event doesn't finish when it's done.
That is a beautiful point, and I think we can all agree on that. And thank you so much for mentioning that planning does not go until when the last speaker finishes their talk. And so for all of you that are attending, whether it's KubeCon or KCDs or anything like that, always remember that the folks that are behind the scenes or organizing the event have a lot of work to do when everybody goes home and enjoys, organizing their swag or looking at their pictures or things like that. A lot of the real heavy duty work starts when the event finishes, of the follow-up, the thank you notes, all the different things, looking, how are our numbers, the metrics, there's reporting that goes on there. So I think that's a really good point. And about automation tools as well too, also as a neurodivergent person with ADHD, couldn't agree more. I also, in terms of automation tools, like to find people that are very organized program managers who can make sure that things are going on track. So that's always a big thing for me in terms of team building. Now, something that I think we all have to admit may happen in one way or another. Murphy's Law. What can go wrong probably will at some point. I think we can all agree that we've all seen moments in events where it is important to be able to improvise. However, I don't think the number one strategy should be, we'll just improvise. We want to have as many things as planned as possible, but I've had speakers arrive late, every kind of technical difficulty you could imagine, the wrong slides being sent. Annalisa, can you talk about the importance of being able to improvise and what kind of, how you can build that into the process?
The improvisation. So, no, it's an art. Improvising, it's an art that all event organizers need to manage somehow in their life. You need to have the cultural background of the team, though, I reckon. So that if you really know the values and objectives that are behind, then you are free to do that. And you can improvise if you have a team behind. So I go back to the question before, but I can tell you about the KCD Italy team, if I may. We are 12 team people, split in two teams, one marketing team and one technical team. And we discuss the distribution of the main domain of interventions at the beginning of the year. So we try to match tasks with personal preferences or inclinations, as Renata was hinting at. Some are experts on newsletters, some on graphics, some on writing, but we believe in team in terms of support. So when someone is failing due to a workload on a daily basis, because we are all work for specific companies, we are volunteering at last. Someone else collect those tasks and carry them out. We never count the number of tasks carried out by each person. So, and that is something important, because if you have a team to rely on, you can improvise. You have always some support somewhere, and you manage to give some results, to have some results at the end. We are not tightly coupled, task and people, so it's very easy to be there in case of need.
Very, very good.
And that's
Yeah, no, I think you said if you have the strong foundation of trust,
yes,
team where everybody knows who's doing what, skill sets, etc., it makes all these things much more fluid. Yes.
If I may add, I think it's very important to have ingredients of a good event, to have nice people to work with each other, which means trust, being safe, feeling safe, education, kindness, all that, but also clear rules that are shared by all organizers. You need to have a sort of checklist of rules that everyone is aware of beforehand.
Yep.
And then the capability to listen, for example, that is something else. Not to hear, but to listen. And then time, patience, resilience. If you have all of that, you can improvise. Otherwise, you get stuck.
It'll get pretty messy pretty quickly.
Pretty messy.
Good. Now, one thing that's really important about events, no matter, I mean, some events can be done for free. The bigger they get, they will probably involve some kind of a budget. This can be a particularly difficult issue for some people that maybe aren't so accustomed to the sales world. They're having to go out and solicit sponsorships. Sophia, tips and tricks in that regard for folks that may be interested in the events world, but don't necessarily have experience in that particular part?
Sure. I mean, I think one of the biggest things, though, is to make sure that you find sponsors that are on brand for you and for your event. But it also comes down to, I think the worst that people can say is no. So a lot of times it's asking and putting in front of them something that makes sense for them as a company as well. So that really goes back to, again, the speakers and the audience that you're going to have, making sure that it all is on brand for the event that you're putting on.
This is a great point. Find their objectives and connect them to yours. The other thing, like you said, some are going to say no. And for a million different, you may have the best idea in the world. Their budget may be tied up. They may have other things that they're doing. There are different things that are going on there. Like you said, as much as possible, put it in their language with their objectives, and also be thinking very concretely about the audience as a good match for the content that we're offering, the audience that we're building, and what that company may have as an interest. One thing that I think that was good that Audra mentioned previously, and Audra, I'd like you to chime in on this one too about sponsorship, is, with sponsors is the main point I think here is clarity, like you're mentioning about how can we guide, how can we coach them into not just doing a pure vendor pitch, but something that's going to be more beneficial from the audience. We always have to remember they are paying. And so we want to have things clearly listed about what are our deliverables, the things that we're providing, and not that it gets to the point of being at the expense of the quality of the event that we're trying to deliver. What's your experience been like there? And are there any tips and tricks that you might be able to offer?
Sure. I mean, just laying out your packages in advance with the prospectus, right? Like, here are the benefits that come with your package. Here's what you're paying for. And then as a salesperson, definitely building that relationship and trust. So you will be their advocate with the rest of your team, but also, like Annalisa said, having those guidelines set and those boundaries set in the beginning. So the program committee can say, like, this is what the sponsors are allowed to do. And we're happy to partner with them to help elevate them in the best way. But always being, a kind voice, but very firm at the same time, because you will get pushback. And it's just finding that balance of, like you said, Bart, having that good attendee experience, not compromising the content, but also giving your sponsors what you promised them. So just again, laying it out very clear in bullet points from the beginning, from the get-go, when you start building your prospectus, and having that collaboration and those, guidelines set with your team ahead of time.
Very, very good point. Because I mean, to steal the term from other contexts, you could have a sponsorzilla, a sponsor that's expecting total control or total influence. But like you said, you can kindly refer them back to the email where the deliverables were explained, where this is what you're paying for, and in exchange, it's going to be this. And that you essentially create a situation that's going to reduce that kind of conflict or tension. A lot of it, like you said, though, in the very beginning, make sure it's very clearly understood, give them the opportunity to ask questions before getting started, before they sign a contract or things like that.
Absolutely.
But always remember that you have that in mind. Now we're getting towards the end, and it seems, we're all in the event space. We've all been in the event space for a while. And it seems that, in my experience, at least it's, there are moments of, I don't want to say extreme stress, but moments of kind of tearing your hair out before an event, asking yourself, why am I doing this? Or this is the last time I'm doing this, or I don't want to do it again. Renata, do you think that there's something about events that offers an adrenaline rush that we can't get somewhere else? What is it about them that makes them so attractive, given some of the difficulties that go into it? What do you think about that?
Yeah, well, I'm a reward seeker. I always searching for the most exciting thing to do, the next most exciting thing to do before I get bored from it. And events don't let you get bored ever. There's always so many things happen and so many turnarounds. And the way I found to cope with it is one, to use kindness and be thankful for everybody else, everybody that's doing their part. Show appreciation and show kindness even when it's really, really hard, because sometimes it is. And I realized during this 12 years that fighting some fights with aggression don't help you with your issues. So just break them with kindness. Reply with kindness always, and this will take you so far. And the second thing I've learned about how to cope with this stress is to have a good laugh about it. Things will go off script, and it's just how it is. You can plan, you can find the best project manager, you can have like all the planning in the universe. There's always something that will not go according to what you're planning, and before going down spiral, just take a good laugh about it and gather together with and it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. If it's not going to be okay, because it's not over.
Very good point. I think going back to the importance of having a good team, these are the people that you can laugh with. These are the people that you can say, okay, I just need to sort of, vent for a little bit about this particular situation, and then we're going to move forward. And like you said, keeping that kindness externally as well as internally. It's something that's not necessarily for everybody. And I think that, the right way to do is what you're describing.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm guilty of using, humor as a coping mechanism for everything. I like to laugh about myself and about everything. And this might not be for everyone, but it's how I find to cope with this, because it's really tough, and it's so much that sometimes it's even overstimulating, and to keep up with it without losing your sanity, sometimes you have to laugh, even if it's just by yourself.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely laugh before crying, always.
Yeah.
Whenever possible. Okay, we're getting towards the end, so I just want to finish up. If everyone could leave us just with a tip or some advice for folks out there that are interested in getting involved in the events world, we'll start with you, Annalisa. What would be your one piece of advice for someone who's maybe interested in this world, but they're not entirely sure? Saying, if I were you, I would definitely keep in mind.
Just dive into it. Don't think about it. Just do it. And I'm not an event planner. I had some experience, but I'm not specialized in that. But you just dive in, and you will learn. You find help and the support. So feel free to try yourself as well.
Very, very good. I think the only way to really do it is to start doing it. And the good thing is that You don't have to plan a KubeCon. You don't have to plan a CIVO Navigate.
Exactly.
You don't have to plan a KCD.
Even a small meetup to start
exactly.
with,
and
chat
it's
with
fine.
someone.
Exactly, right. And also the ability to do this online gives us a lot of flexibility. What about you, Sophia?
I think just meet as many people as possible. I think the beauty of events is that you meet people from all different walks of life all over the world, whether it be virtually or in person. So get to know them individually, get to know what they're looking for in events, and then just keep taking notes, keep growing, keep learning, start small, and then build on that.
Fantastic. And I think we can all agree one of the beautiful things about events is precisely that it puts us in, I know all of you because of different events, whether it's online or offline. So I think this is the perfect example of that. Renata, what about you?
I think I would say don't stop because of limitations you think you have. You know, as we discussed and everybody agreed, this is not a one-man job. You know, it's a team, and everybody, even the people that don't have any idea that they have a participation on this, they actually do. You know, like the people that are actually coming to your events, they are big important part of it. And if you are afraid because you maybe are you know, like an insecure person, or if you are not very much outgoing, you can always find in other people, or you can always find a way to cope and to, you know, move forward and go forward with your project beyond your limitations. There's always a way.
Very, very good. And once again, that importance of being resilient and trusting yourself that you have the ability to do this and getting the right team. Last but not least, Audra, I'm going to ask you to give your advice about one specific point that we didn't address, and we actually will have to address probably another session in a future date. The importance of building a diverse and inclusive event, because it's something that we've seen time and time again. It's something that's challenging in the open source world, challenging in the area in which we work. And like I said, we could write a book about this. We could have 10 sessions about this. But if we have to get it compact, you know, what's the one thing you're frequently finding, or the piece of advice that you would like to give most often?
It's a lot about your network and really putting out there an inviting environment. So making it clear on your call for proposals, like we are going to have a diverse lineup. These are our goals. And just stating like, this is what we're doing, kind of manifesting it. Then you're putting out there the expectations with your committee, with your attendees, with the people on your team. And then also, yeah, I guess just networking within your committee and your members. And then when you have a form on the CFP, like making it inviting for people who might need monetary sponsorship to simply just check a box and say, yes, I would like help, because we find a lot of people don't like asking for help. So there are all kinds of tips and tricks. But the overall advice is to just make it very clear your goals and put it out there that, you know, your intention is good and it's going to happen. Like just manifest it, because it will.
Very, very solid. And I think also, like you said, having it part and parcel of the event from the very beginning, not something that you do 3 days before. Oh, look at our lineup. We need to start and make sudden changes. That's not really a good time to do it. And it's going to make it much more stressful and complicated. Have it, that needs to be from moment 0 or -1 or whatever you want to say, but from the very, very get-go. If you're not sure about these kinds of things, feel free to reach out to any of the people that are in this session to get advice, as we've all been at events and are making this an essential component of them. So I think that, you know, there are different ways to go about it, but going back to what you said, your network. If you feel like, ooh, maybe I don't have the network, somebody else does. So ask, and people will be happy to help. So I definitely hear you on that. This has been wonderful. And I think we definitely need to have a part 2. So keep your calendars open for the next 3 months after KubeCon, after the KubeCon dust settles, after KCD, after KCD Italy. We may have to do it before CIVO Navigate in February, which all of you need to check out. But an absolute pleasure to be with all of you today. Thank you very much. I'm sure folks are going to learn a lot from this session. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
That was absolutely amazing. Excellent job to our speakers from our panel. Thank you so much. That was super, super good. Now, we had different comments, different things that were out there. Once again, for people that are getting started, you don't need to feel like you need to organize the World Cup or the Oscars or it's good to be ambitious, but you can start small. Nowadays, with doing so many things online, you can organize an event with a couple of speakers, some of your friends, get together, having clear objectives, giving people, the right information about what this is about, thinking about what's in it for them, using these elements that we discussed about event experience, right? If you think about user experience, customer experience, what kind of an experience you want your audience to have? Ideally, when they finish the event, what's the stuff that they're going to be taking away with them, all right? Also, while we were chatting in the chat, we had some other questions as well. I see some folks getting some answers. That's good. I hope that the audio works well enough for my guitar to be heard, because I did mention that we could do that. It's something that's kind of a little bit unique. Let's see if I can get a good focus on this. This is my dad's guitar, actually. It's from 1963, many years before I was born. I know that I'm old, but I'm not that old. So yeah, I actually got this fixed recently, and it sounds pretty good. I uploaded a video yesterday to Twitter, and I will be doing so more often because it's pretty fun, actually. So I'm gonna try to turn on my microphone. I hope that this is audible. Please let me know. I'll be monitoring the chat. Let me know if you can hear this reasonably well. But yeah, let's give it a shot. This is something that I wrote many years ago. Right? Most of the things that you'll find me playing are things that I've written on my own. Just kind of my style, kind of why I got involved with guitar, and something, like I said, that makes me happy. And I highly encourage all of you to, whether it's music or something creative or writing or drawing, do something creative, right? Life is very short, and it's really important to express yourself. So yeah, let's see if this works. We got a little bit out of tune there. That's all good. Anyway, well, we will continue later on with ukulele. But in the meantime, massive shout out once again to our amazing speakers. All right, you can check them out all on Twitter. I tagged them in a tweet previously. Audra, Sophia, Renata, Annalisa absolutely rocked it. All coming out from different experiences, different nationalities, different countries, but providing lots of value on how to practically approach organizing events. Right. Well, I was actually talking to Annalisa. I think I might get some of those points written down, so when folks are starting out, to make it simpler. All right. We had some really good knowledge being shared there. So I would definitely like that to continue on. So let's see. Now, moving on to our next talk. We've got KubeCon coming up pretty soon. I hope most of you are going to KubeCon, whether it's online or in person. Very excited to meet some of the folks that are in our audience actually for the first time there. Some of our DoK interns from right now, as also from previous times. All right. We've loved having interns with us for about the last year and a half. Actually, it's been a wonderful experience for us to learn while other folks are learning as well. So like I said, very much looking forward to that. You'll be hearing from some of our other interns later. But like I said, we know that for some of you, it's your first time being in KubeCon. It's going to be your first time, and that can be a little bit overwhelming. So to make it easier, we got two wonderful folks, Jennifer and Anais, fantastic people, Jen and Anais, and they gave me some advice about what's the best way to make the most out of KubeCon, how you can learn, how you can really benefit from all the different things that are going on. It's because let's face it, sometimes it can be a little bit overwhelming. So we want to make it easier, right? That being said, I'm going to cue this video up. See if, there we go. Perfect. All right. It's DoK Day. And for a lot of folks, oh, sorry. Good. Once again, folks, get your comments in the chat. We'd love to hear from you, your feedback, your doubts, your questions, etc. Both Jen and Anais are very accessible. You can check them out on Twitter. Feel free to get screenshots, tag them, interact, right? Let's have fun together. All right, we ready?
Yes.
Ready.
What's up, everybody? Super stoked to be diving into this conversation. We're getting close to KubeCon, getting close to DoK Day. And for a lot of folks, if it's their first KubeCon or second, if it's in person or online, just wanted to go over some practical tips to make sure you're making the most out of this exceptional event that we kind of divides our year based on one or the other. And to do that properly, very excited to have two amazing people with me today, Jennifer and Anais. If you could just quickly introduce yourselves so we get to know you a little bit better. I'm sure many folks know who you are, but for those who don't, we can start with you, Jennifer.
Hi, I'm Jen. My pronouns are she, her. You can find me at JK Riggins on Twitter, LinkedIn. I'm not on the more hip, cool socials because I'm a working mom, so who has time or energy? And probably I'm most relevant in the KubeCon space for the new stack, which I've written for a long time. And I'm a tech storyteller. So I like to say I write about tech, I talk about tech, I don't tech. So I hope y'all enjoy KubeCon, whether it's your first time or first time in person.
All right, sounds good. And very much identify with your explanation of not doing tech, but being in it and getting to interact with all the wonderful folks that are part of our ecosystem. Next up, we've got Anais.
Hi. Yeah, my name is Anais. I'm the open source developer advocate at DataSecurity. My pronouns are also she, her. I'm mainly active on Twitter. You can find me there at Urlichs Anais if you have any questions, if you just want to reach out or stay in contact. And what I'm mainly, I guess, I don't know, known for what I've done in the space is a challenge called 100 Days of Kubernetes. So I got started in the cloud native space about 2 years ago and started a challenge where I shared all of my learning online.
Very good. And today we'll be doing something similar, sharing learnings online, focusing on the KubeCon experience. So Jen, in your case, what was the first KubeCon that you attended and how was it?
I can't even remember because it's been online for so long. My first and only in-person experience was Valencia, the European one this year. It was very hot. It was very good. It was also a kick in the stomach for someone that tends to be more COVID safe. It's a lot. These are huge conferences, so especially if you've not done a lot of conferences, I think it is something to prepare yourself for, whether it's online or in person. The problem with online is it's great. Everyone can join. It's way more affordable. It's a way for people to join. We've gotten out of these habits where we take days off or have like study days at work and things like that. So we tend to do other work while we're doing our work, while we're live streaming. And that's a bad habit we got into because of COVID, because, well, you're at home anyway. You don't need to take time off. You can just watch it later or watch it live. So I think balancing everything is the most important part. When you're at an event, self-care, don't get FOMO. You're going to miss out on stuff. Just deal with that. And then also take time off. Schedule that into your day, but schedule time off, not schedule in time to do your job, which you are also doing your job there or trying to do a job when you're there. So I think whether you're online or in person, just about everything's being recorded and published on the YouTube later. I said the YouTube. I am ancient, I'm feeling lately. But yeah, just I think it can be very overwhelming. So definitely make sure that you know what's recorded or not. Make sure you're using the website in the right way because the website's never been great. The schedule's not great. The schedule's not very easy to use. So double check that everything's doing the right time zone. You're filtering by time zone, that functionality is working. If not, tell in the Slack community. Yeah, I think it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of conference. So be aware of that and just plan for you, plan fun, plan to go outside if you're in person or online. These are wild things. Go for a walk, explore where you live or in Detroit.
Absolutely. Very, very good points. Very practical. And like you said, you're not going to get to everything. I think it's going to be something we'll mention more than once throughout this conversation. And just as with everything else in life, plan those self-care breaks, get the balance in there, make sure you're drinking water. It's never healthy to sit in front of a screen for 15 hours, whether it's KubeCon or anything else. Those are, and like you said, whether it's in person or online. Having done both, I would say that in both situations, I just got to the point where it can be a little bit overwhelming. Anais, in your case, was your first KubeCon experience online or was it in person?
It was online. And my first in-person one was also the previous one, the EU one in Valencia. And it's funny that Jennifer mentioned it was so hot because I just remember the freezing rooms there. I was looking for a hoodie the first day and I had a hoodie on and I was looking for an extra hoodie I could put on because it was so cold. So if you're there in person, make sure to get a scarf and jacket and everything. Yeah.
And apart from that, any tips that you would offer?
Yes.
Temperatures are important because the last thing you want to do is spend your KubeCon being sick or coughing.
Exactly. I got sick. So don't do that. Yeah, I mean, Jennifer mentioned so many amazing points. The first virtual one that I attended was the North America one at the end of 2020, which was very exciting. Now, I think especially after experiencing the in-person one, I would suggest everybody to download the app with the schedule because it makes things a lot easier than the online schedule. Like when you're walking around or also when we're watching from home, it is a lot clearer on the app and it's easier to filter through the events and see by time. At least that was my experience. Otherwise, I think talks are amazing. But again, like mentioned, talks are going to be recorded. So make sure you
I just got to the point where it can be a little
and see by time. At least that was my experience. Otherwise, I think talks are amazing. But again, like mentioned, talks are going to be recorded. So make sure you only watch those talks where you know you really want to ask questions and get involved because there's going to be a lot of talks anyways. When I attended virtual, I watched lots and lots of talks and I think I watched way too many and my schedule was packed and I couldn't really even absorb all of the talks. And in the end, I forgot what I even listened to. Versus at KubeCon in person, I just attended like 6 talks throughout the 3-day event, which I think is much healthier. So really do prepare your schedule before. And I think that's a good thing to do. But at the same time, don't plan out your conference because things are going to be completely different. Like you plan for one thing, right? And then it's going to be completely different once you watch virtual or once you attend in person. And again, there are lots of networking events, also lots of different Slack channels, also lots of companies have Slack channels where they just specifically for KubeCon, there are YouTubers who post live streams, who do watch parties and similar. So you can find also these other ways to network and engage. And then there are also official networking and mentoring events as well that you can attend. So I would really invest into these networking sessions and ways to meet people and to engage with other attendees. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think that's one of the powerful things about this is the chance to meet so many people. Also, as both of you are saying, you're only going to be able to do so much, whether it's online or in person. And so if you're curious about that, if you have doubts, think about the topics that you're interested in. You can search the schedule by keywords. You can also look at co-located events, things of that nature to find the things that are going to be most relevant. And as what you said, think about the talks where you already have a question or where you're going to have some questions for the speaker so you can get them out and get those answered. If you want to follow up, you can do so on Slack, whether it's Slack or virtual booths or things like that for those that are attending online. There's a lot going on in KubeCon, so if you don't get an immediate response, don't worry. Just maybe give yourself a reminder. I would say not even a week, but better 2 weeks, because after KubeCon, everyone's pretty tired. So you can follow up on those conversations later on, but these are good points. Now, something that comes up time and time again, whether it's in KubeCon or also in KCDs, is the CNCF's code of conduct. Jen, can you just give us a bit of an overview of that, why it's important and why it needs to be a living, breathing document in the context of these events?
I love codes of conduct. They are, time and again, we are an open source activity. So while the tech community as a whole has a lot of diversity problems, open source has a lot more because it's a lot of people doing voluntary work. And a lot of people minoritized by tech or the world don't have a lot of free time. So it's even more important. We also have people being brought together that maybe haven't been around a lot of people a lot lately. So it can be very overwhelming, things like that. I think, well, I know we all we have our cookies thing. And when we have a cookies thing, we yeah, accept or don't accept. I don't care. And there's an update on my iPhone. I'm like, scroll. So the phone thinks I read it, but I didn't. A code of conduct is not like that. This is not just a legal document that we probably wouldn't understand anyway. It's written in such a way that everyone understands. And there are specific people you talk to. There's specific ways to communicate with people. And it should be the thing they're checking. I would hope on Slack, in my experience, it is the thing they're usually most responsive with because that's essential. If you're not sure if something's code of conduct violation, report it. I think err on the side of if you see something, to quote the London Transit, if you see something, say something, sorted. Anything, and it doesn't just mean you, anything that makes you feel uncomfortable that you witness, do it. This makes it safe for everyone. Hopefully, then CNCF will do its due diligence and actually act on it. This is not a place to pick up people. Just something, because I've known so many women who have been hit on, groped through this event, whether it's DM'd while they are giving a keynote, being asked out, DM'd on Twitter, or it's being at one of the events. The code of conduct impacts everything. We're not just talking about not saying something bigoted during a question or a talk. It impacts any co-located event. It impacts the entire Slack community the entire time. Take this seriously. And also welcome it because it makes you feel safer. It makes the community safer. It is a massive community. I think 80,000 people just in the Slack community. Also, sign up for the Slack and then immediately turn off all notifications because you don't want a Slack community of 80,000 people.
Tip there, definitely do that. Notifications off.
But this is a wonderful thing because of code of conduct helps you feel safe. And it should be something I believe as soon as you log into Slack, you get a ping notification, sent a link to the code of conduct. You will get it sent in all your messages, all your reminders in the app. Thankfully, they're reminding you they're doing the work. Just do the work to be a good person and help other people be a good person too.
Absolutely agree. And I think like you said too, when in doubt, just ask. If you're not sure, and go to Slack and say, hey, I think I have a question about the code of conduct. Something came up, whatever. Can someone please help me? You will be directed. You don't need to worry about chain of command and things like that. If you like you said, follow the London transportation sort of steps, it's really simple, and people will be very willing and eager to help you out with that. And Anais, anything that you'd like to add about that regarding online or in person? Because I think it's good that Jen mentioned both environments that these things can happen. Anything that you'd like to add in your experience or things that you would recommend for folks that are perhaps attending for the first time?
Totally. I think what Jen mentioned, and just reiterating on that, it's really about the code of conduct is about empowering you to speak up for yourself, but also speak up for others. That's really why it's there for. So you can ask for the space, and you can also have a process and something that you can do, basically steps, if you see that somebody else is uncomfortable as well, and help them to ask for their space back and be respected by other community members. And that's why it's so important that there is a code of conduct and that we iterate on it and just share that it's there for you to help you and help other attendees as well. Yeah.
Very good. And we'll obviously be sharing the links in here too, so that people have direct access. Because as you mentioned, Jen, is that it's something that we all click on terms and conditions and cookie policies and things like that, but read it. All right, seriously, read it. This is not a joke, and it's something that's really important that makes this community different from others. And as you said as well, both of you are saying that It's there, to protect ourselves, to protect each other, and to remind us about what it is that brings us together, and that there are certain things we do not tolerate, that perhaps in other spaces might have a different approach, but there is a specific one here. And as Jen mentioned as well, it's not just within the confines of KubeCon, but also co-located events, after parties, things like anything like that. It seems that that you're not sure about. Like I said, when in doubt, just get in there and ask. And in addition, with Slack, use it to reach out and ask questions. Other things that we want to keep in mind. See, both of you mentioned, yes, there are talks, there are lots of them. They will be on YouTube afterwards. So if you have a particular connection with a speaker, with a maintainer, where you really have a question that you would really like to be answered, yes, it's a great idea. Other opportunities for networking. We can talk about Slack. We can also talk about it in person. Regarding Slack opportunities to network or online opportunities to network, Jen, what's your experience been there? Any recommendations, do's or don'ts you'd like to share?
What's good about KubeCon is, first of all, when you're looking to connect with speakers or to other attendees of a specific session, that maybe it's around a certain theme or something, that's a really good opportunity because they typically have it organized. You'll see popping up. This is the largest Slack community I've been involved in, and I'm within at least 20 Slack communities, but this is, again, 80,000 people. But so you really have to browse your channels ahead, but there are channels pretty much for every talk to continue the conversation. So then, there's channels for every, what would it be called? Like the line in, if you were looking at a agenda, what would that word be? Like the track, things like that. So they deeply encourage the speakers to come, but any attendees to join that. That's really nice. There's also, don't forget, there's a chat functionality within the app or the platform that the conference is run from. Also easier to use the agenda through the platform usually than through, the agenda is just always very finicky, notoriously. That's probably the easiest way and then there's just, don't forget to introduce yourself. The hallway channel exists in the community because of that. I'm mentoring, it's really exciting. I'm getting paid a mentorship. I always recommend paid for work. And for students from the University of Tennessee in a DEI in open source, diversity, equity, inclusion in open source software course they're doing, which is very cool. And the first thing I had them do was join the Slack community and introduce themselves and the hallway track and ask a question that they were interested in researching. That's a great way to introduce yourself anyway. I wouldn't really necessarily add links to introduce yourself or X them out so they don't preview the links because no one wants to see a cluttered Slack community. But that's a great way to start the conversation. And then I would always suggest, unless it's someone you know, I wouldn't DM them until you've made a connection with them. So in a public setting, that is not necessarily required by the code of conduct, but I think that is a good conduct to create a safe space for people, especially those marginalized by tech, but in general, so you just don't want to fill people. And also with open source, asking questions in a more public space, people are ready to run and answer a question for you. So that just makes it easier than putting the pressure on that one speaker who may have other talks and be working a booth, etc. at that time. You're opening up so other people can help and answer each other as well. And you may make greater connections that way.
Very, very good points. And like you said, a little bit of respect goes a long way in a Slack environment. DMing somebody often might seem like it's a sales approach or many other things that might make someone a little bit uncomfortable. So if you get those genuinely curious questions out in the open, people are going to be really excited to answer them. And there is a collectively strong energy of folks attending KubeCon in general, and the Slack channel is no exception. So you'll see a lot of activity there. Pretty easy place to go and introduce yourself. Like you said, minimizing links, showing more about interests and what you're interested in doing. A lot of people will be checking in every day just to say hi and greet others that are coming in. So you have that was a piece of advice on the online side. On the offline side, Anais, could you talk about that a little bit more? And also, could you mention the mentoring sessions?
Sure. Yeah. So on the offline side, there are going to be lots of different opportunities to network, and you might feel at some point kind of a fatigue from it as well, because obviously you're going to meet people everywhere. When you go onto the showrooms to talk to the sponsors and to the different exhibitors, call them exhibitors, there, like the different companies
Works for
that
me.
are there, that are present, whether open source or enterprise. There are going to be lots of things that you can talk about, lots of people to meet. Also, the lunch breaks. The lunch breaks, coffee breaks are an amazing opportunity to network. When you see a group of people who have a conversation, or like somebody standing on the side, go up to them, introduce yourself, right? Lots of people are going to be there to interact, to also meet new people. Now, I think the previous KubeCon had also like on their badge like a tag of like whether people want to talk to you, right? And like also the kind of topics they want to talk about. For example, I had on my badge like ambassador, and then just some of the technologies that I'm interested in listed as well. So people knew what kind of topics they can talk to me about, right? And that always gives like a conversation starter as well. Otherwise, just ask them what are people there for? What are they interested in, right? What kind of talks they have been listening to. This little effort, I guess, to introduce yourself and just say hi goes a long way. And lots of people will be very thankful for somebody taking that step as well, right? Now, what else? There are also going to be lots of events, networking events after the sessions that are great to attend. What else? And on Friday, there's an official mentoring session, both in person, but also virtual. So you can attend there as well. It's mentoring and networking. So you can meet other people. You can talk more about the different opportunities that are available to get involved in the space. Before that, especially like if you are attending the co-located events, there's also going to be maintainer sessions and different project sessions. So if you're interested in particular CNCF projects, they are likely going to have a meeting around KubeCon, either before or during somewhere. So you can also check out their GitHub organizations and see where those projects are meeting, and you can meet the maintainers there likely as well. Those are some ways that I like to meet people and like that and find, I guess, find out where the conversations that I'm interested in take place. What else? Did I forget something?
Those were great. They had those ribbons you were talking about.
Yeah, they had those
I
ribbons,
completely
exactly. They were
forgot.
big. Yeah.
The entire CNCF universe, they were color coded. It was just awesome. There should be something that we try to do something very similar for online, that maybe you could add like an emoji for each group or whatever. That's very interesting. That was really cool. I believe this was also an event. Well, it definitely had pronoun stickers. So use them. The Slack of KubeCon has the ability to add your pronouns in your profile. Do that. They also had other stickers, communication stickers, which kind of says, hey, I'm open. I'm here to network. I want to meet people. Hey, I only want to talk to people I know. Hey, I want to be the one that choose talk to people. And then beyond that, like if people wearing headphones or something, take these physical signals to understand who wants to be spoken to or not. And don't forget about just being a good audience member too. If you have the ability, sit closer to the front. If you are comfortable, I think they also had different colored lanyards that help signify for the photographer if you want your photo taken or not, things like that. But if you're comfortable with that, because especially don't sit towards the front, be an active listener, smile, clap, things like that go a long way, especially because some people haven't done a talk in 2 years, 3 years. And it's just can be exhausting if people are just in the back. I know we want to be on our computers, but another tip I have, and this may be because, again, I write about tech, I'm not tech. When it's a more technical talk, I wait for the recording, which is usually almost immediate in this event, not all events, but in the app, it's usually almost immediate, because when it's something technical, I want to be able to pause and rewind. I may still join if I want to bring a question or something, but you can also join that thread later on Slack if you want to ask a follow-up question. But anything that involves something that I really want to know about, and there may be other stuff that I really want to join and I want to amplify that message, like for me, DEI or accessibility topics, things like that. I want to then live tweet about and take pictures and amplify that very soon. Pictures with alt text, of course. We get very lazy at conferences and we forget things like alt text because we're taking pictures of screenshots of technology. So those takes the extra step. But I think when you're trying to balance what you want to do, if you want to focus on networking, especially if you're getting a job, focus on that. You can always see the talks afterwards in the platform. So I would suggest if you want to make a connection, make a mentorship, networking, make those your priorities. If you just want to take talks, go to talks, but figure out what your greatest priority is, because the talks will always be recorded later. But if you're going to go, be an enthusiastic audience, an active audience.
Absolutely.
Laugh out loud.
Yeah, the thing is, it's for anybody giving a talk, no matter how experienced they are, they want to feel that they're being noticed, that people are paying attention, that there's engagement and interest. So if you're comfortable, move towards the front, tell somebody afterwards that they gave a good talk, whether it's in person or online, that you enjoyed it. As a speaker, just getting that basic validation is huge. And so you can give the gift of giving. And I think that's a really, really good thing to do. With both these points about as well too, regarding having a clear agenda about, okay, do I want to consume a lot of technical content? Remembering that it's also going to be on YouTube and quite quick. In the last one in Valencia, I think within a week, most of the videos were already uploaded. So to YouTube, at least from the main KubeCon talks, not necessarily co-located events. But another thing to keep in mind, as Anais was mentioning regarding the mentoring session, it'll be online as well as in person. I've done both, and both have been amazing. And as a mentee as well as a mentor, and generally it's quick sessions where people go around quickly and introduce themselves, explain maybe a particular challenge they're having or something that they're working on. And then the mentors as well as the other mentees give amazing advice. And it's a really, it's just a very positive environment that I think for me is one of the things that characterizes KubeCon in general, is a lot of very positive energy. Yes, there is also the enterprise side of things of companies trying to promote things. But for me personally, the best part is being able to connect with people. People are very generous. It's just a really good vibe. And that's what I encourage people to enjoy as much as they can. That being said, we're getting towards the end. I just want the two of you to think about what have been some of your biggest, KubeCon highlights, some moments that that you think stand out, and experiences that you perhaps hope that other people would have. We start with you, Jen.
Put me on the spot. Well, the most important KubeCon experience for me was in Valencia, meeting the majority of my teammates from the new stack that majority I haven't met, and I've been working with them for over 7 years. So it's an opportunity when you have met people online to meet people in person. Oh, and also my kind of mentee, but now friend, Divya Mohan, someone who right before COVID, we started doing stuff online. She is based in India, and we've got to see each other. We actually got to see each other last week as well at the wonderful DevOps Days conference in London. It's an opportunity to meet people that you don't get to see otherwise. And that is a difference. Other than that, I love a panel. I love any of these. Especially because of how unbelievably in person, how predominantly white and male KubeCon is, and it is staggeringly so. Joining these DEI events are wonderful. They are amazing and they lift you up. So I definitely recommend all of those. And those tend to be, if there's a panel, etc., they're not always posted on YouTube afterwards, which is kind of upsetting. They're the ones that don't get the cut always. Those are just great events. And if you're in person, eat your heart out. You pay for this ticket, or your company paid for this ticket. Definitely eat, enjoy the food, enjoy your time there. And of course, don't forget to explore the city. I've not been to Detroit, but it's supposed to be an amazing city. So don't forget to do the things that aren't just tech or
Absolutely.
Your day job while you're trying to scram about.
Absolutely. I definitely recommend that. And also, if you have the ability to do so, if you're attending in person, try to at least maybe give yourself half a day before everything starts, just to look around, see a few different things. Because if not, if you're in a conference center, you could be anywhere in the world. Most conference centers are the same. There's lots of rooms, and there's really not much to it in terms of enjoying or being able to interact with locals and understand more about local culture. So if you have the ability to do so, please do that. If not, if you're attending virtually, still take the time to learn a little bit about the city, and maybe ask in Slack, if people are from there, anything that you can get from that. One of the beautiful things about this community is being global, and I really encourage people to try to take advantage of that as much as possible. Anais, what special KubeCon moments would stand out for you, and any recommendations you might have regarding them?
Yes, I completely second what Jen just said, that, for example, the last KubeCon was the first event where I actually got to meet my teammates live in person, which was very exciting since I'm completely remote. Now, besides that, there are lots of people at KubeCon, both virtually and in person, who are creating, I guess, special content and special moments at the conference. And one of my favorite moments was actually by Jen being asked at the last KubeCon about what my definition for cloud native actually is. And in that moment, I just said, without thinking much about it, it's the community, because this space is built by the community, maintained by the community, right? By open source contributors, engineers, community members, such as everybody listening right now, right? And I think that's very special, and just being able to share that and to think about it, that was just a very, very nice moment, very special moment. And I really encourage everybody, if you're attending also virtually, really try to connect with other attendees. If you see somebody who's working on a technology, on a topic that you find interesting, connect with them directly, because that way you can build long-term like friendships as well, meet other people who might be completely at the other end of the globe, right? Which is very exciting, which is, I think, makes also this community so special. Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you on all those points, and I think that's really what there is to get out of this. Is yes, there's a technical aspect, but those technical aspects will continue in whatever group you happen to be in, whatever SIG you happen to be in. Those meetings will continue afterwards. What you're not going to have necessarily is all these people coming together from so many different parts of the world and being able to be part of their experiences, as well as allowing them to be part of yours. So I think that's for me is a lot of the magic of what KubeCon delivers. And that being said, I thank you both very much for joining us today. I unfortunately won't see you in Detroit, but you'll be with me in spirit. And look forward to seeing you again in London sometime soon. And we'll leave your socials as well, so folks can check you out. But if there's anything else we'd like to say before we finish, but with that being said, thank you both very, very much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Yeah, just the one thing I was thinking of which I hadn't thought of, the little experiment I did with what does cloud native mean. We use a lot, we're practically the UN. We use a lot of acronyms, a lot of like K8S, things like that. Let's just try to define ourselves and speak more clearly for especially non-native English speakers and all. But this is exciting, because you're right, Bart. This is the best part, the community, not the open source part. We get all fuddled up on the code, but the community is the best part.
Absolutely. Feel that a lot. Excellent. Thank you very much. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Okay, and we're back. Very good to be back. Amazing talk from Anais and from Jen. Lots of practical tips in there about how not to get overwhelmed, focus on what's going to add the most value for you, really take advantage of the opportunity to connect with different people, folks from many different parts of the world, learn from them, experience the magic of KubeCon in that sense. Next thing we're going to do, just in case you haven't seen it already, we've got some killer promo videos for DoK Day. I want to show you the newest one. So if you just bear with me, let's jump into this and check it out.
The hour's approaching to give it your best. You've got to reach your prime. That's when you need to push yourself to the test and show us a passage of time. We're gonna need a montage. Take some montage. Show a lot of things happening at once. Remind everyone of what's going on. And with every shot, show a little improvement. So show it all would take too long. That's called a montage. Montage. And anything you want to go, from just a beginner to a pro, you need a montage. Even Rocky had a montage.
Perfect. And we are back. We will play ukulele a little bit later on, but before we get to that, I want to show you our next speaker. All right, a fantastic, amazing human being. Her name happens to be Divya, and she is an incredible person. One of the reasons I was able to get involved in the CNCF in the first place. And like I said, just extremely grateful to all of her support throughout all my experiences in the CNCF, from the very beginning to everything I'm doing now. So that being said, I'm going to get her on here. And I had a lovely conversation with Divya about open source, art, and cats. All right, so we're going to check this out. Like I said, if you don't know Divya already, you definitely need to have her on your radar. She's an amazing person, one of the coolest people I've been lucky enough to meet in the last few years. So we're going to check out the talk that we did with her. Oh, well, no, sorry, that's not the talk we did with her. That's the talk that we did with our other speaker, Courtney. As you can see, once again, the importance of being able to improvise. Let me see. I think this should be the one. There we go. All right, let's get Divya on there. You know, as much as we can emphasize the technical skills that are necessary of all the technologies we're looking at in the cloud native ecosystem, the data on Kubernetes community, there are a lot of other things that are important. And Divya, what are some of those things that folks need to keep in mind if they want to, give the community the spirit that it needs, the energy that it needs?
Yeah, thank you so much, Bart, firstly having me here, and it's so nice to catch up with you after meeting you in Valencia, and I hope I get to see you soon again. So first off, this is not to say that technical skills are not important. Of course, we are all working in technology, so it's obvious that you do need to have those technical skills. But coming from various backgrounds and coming from various cultures and various parts of the world, it's difficult. I understand it's difficult that to connect with individuals where they are at, or meet them where they are at any given point in time. So it's essential that as contributors, or as new entrants to the community, as much as tech is important, we also place importance on the soft skills side of things as well. Now, what do I mean by soft skills? I really think it would be more to do with the qualitative aspects, like behavioral skills, how you interact with other people in the community, being empathetic, being considerate of other people's situation, and in general being just a decent person. In fact, I think it's the Kubernetes code of conduct to be nice to one another, and I think it's one of the best things that you can re-emphasize wherever you go, because at the end of the day, we're all just humans interacting with one another and powering the tech that is actually helping us move forward, right? So I believe that even the soft skill side of things really matters when it comes to interactions within the community and your way forward within the community. I hope that makes sense.
No, I think it does. I think we can drill down a little bit, because really quickly, where are you from?
I'm from India.
But which part of India?
I'm from the western part of India, but actually my roots are in the southern part. Okay,
so you already, you can say have that empathy of different influences from different places, because India is quite a big country with lots of people.
Yeah.
And no, but I'm just saying is that, okay, so you're from there, but in your experience, how many different countries and cultures have you interacted with in your experience in the cloud native family, if you want to call it that way?
I think practically interacted with at least one person from each continent. I was never a good geography student, but I think as far as I can make that claim, I think I've interacted with at least one person from each continent, and maybe even more, to be honest. Of course, the numbers tilt slightly higher when you talk about the Americas and the Europe side, because of the number of contributors that come in from these regions. But I think interacted from people down under in Australia and New Zealand, as well as people as far as Russia and even Africa for that matter. So I think the only continent left for me is Antarctica, but I'm not sure if there are any.
And if you are in Antarctica and you want to contribute, please get in touch so that Divya and I can check off the list. No, I agree though, and for me that's one of the most beautiful things about this, and particularly as a non-technical person, but someone who really enjoys experiencing other people's cultures, learning about the places where they live. It's extremely enriching. And I always tell people, it's like, as quickly as you can, try to interact with people from different places and have an open mind and an open heart. Listen as much and listen, really, really listen. And there's so much that you can get out from that. It doesn't mean you're abandoning your own culture because of interacting with people from another one. You're giving them a gift, and giving them the gift of giving. And there's so much you can get in return. Could you maybe touch on a couple of specific examples of people that you've worked with from different places and things that you've learned?
Oh yeah, I could actually. So there's a bunch of stuff that I've learned in terms of, I think it's more to do with, how I should be interacting with people from different cultures. For example, I've learned to be more appreciative of time offs in the European context. So before this, I was, of course, working in a multinational company and then a bank. But working with SUSE and working in the cloud native ecosystem, very closely with Europeans and with Americans and with other parts of the world, I have developed a better understanding of how people take their time off. And I realized that in the case of Europeans, they really, really love their time off. And they do not, they are really particular about taking their time off in the months between July and I guess the start of October is what I have noticed. And I've realized that that's just maybe one aspect of it. But coming to the, linguistic aspect, wherein, I obviously have had linguistic barriers when speaking with people who are not as, who do not have English as their primary language. Even my language, my native language is not English. I primarily speak Hindi, Marathi, Malayalam, and a bunch of other Indian languages. So when it comes to, speaking to another person who probably is on a similar level or, does not have the proficiency in English, it's difficult, obviously, but it's also a learning experience for me because I personally get to understand from what perspective they're coming from and, to commute and how I can get my message across in the simplest way possible. And that's not something I would have considered had I been working in my, traditional setup where I had to just interact with fellow countrymen. And that was the case for a lot of my day job interactions. So open source has technically made me a better person because I am able to empathize with people, put myself in their shoes and, drill it down to the simplest possible so that I can connect. Another example I can probably give because I realize that, this might be too much of an overkill. I tend to interact a lot with students. And that is after being, a speaker on CNCF students and on the student track at KubeCon. A lot of students who enter into the ecosystem, they are not very well versed with all the technical nitty-gritties, right? Just like, for people whose primary language is not English, it's a very similar case in that, these students do not have the knowledge of the ecosystem, so they struggle with asking the right questions. So during, my one-on-ones or during this, these chats or whatever avenues we have these conversations on, I've realized that, actually simplifying it to the bare minimum and asking them the right questions and enabling them to ask me the right questions is a different art in itself. Because if you enable a person to ask better questions and equip them with resources that can help them ask better questions, there's nothing like it. You're giving them like a guidebook for life. So those are like the 3 different examples, but I don't know if that makes sense.
No, definitely does. And I think, there's a lot that we can unpack here. And understanding, going back to the first part that you mentioned about languages, is that someone not speaking English, at the highest level possible is an opportunity for us, like you said, to really focus on our listening skills and build out other skills that we don't necessarily focus on as much.
Yeah.
I think that's once again, is that these community environments really provide a lot of opportunities to give so much to so many, and to be a very kind reminder that despite some of the many horrible things that happen in the world from time to time, that this is an opportunity that we have to be good to each other, to share with each other, to support each other, to help each other grow. And like you said, to sort of leave aside, you said this previously, leave aside the corporate, this is just going to be good for me to, to get my next, if you treat it that way,
yeah,
people will probably notice because it'd be quite obvious. And that's not really what we're about. And I think an expression you're very familiar with and have probably said many times, the concept of paying it forward. Look for these opportunities to give, to mentor, and there are lots of different ways that can happen. One other thing, though, to take the subject of empathy further, something we agreed that we were going to talk about, and we'll definitely be asking Savitha to talk about as well. Savitha, it's your turn to talk now, would be the subject of art and cats. So in your particular case, how do those 2 subjects matter in a cloud native context?
For me, I'm not a very artistic person. Anybody who knows me knows that I can't draw to save my life. So if you're ever stuck in a situation where you are probably held at gunpoint and you're asked to call one person who can draw, please never call me, because I'm 150% sure that I will not be able to save your life. So if it's a tech problem, maybe I can at least Google and find a solution if I don't know the answer. But if it's art, I am not a very artistic person. Like, I can't draw. I can write. That is art too. I understand that. But if it's specifically drawing, please don't call me. I have, full disclosure, I've made my, parents draw almost all of my drawing assignments in school. So that was how bad my drawing was. So art is for me, in my case, it would be writing and communicating, because I think communicating is a very, very underappreciated art. In fact, I was reading a book about it recently, and the author there says that communicating effectively is an art, and not many people actually get it right. Writing and reading are often taught in schools as, these primary, in your primary grades. You are, taught your alphabets, you're taught, how to read them and how to write them. But when it comes to talking clearly or writing clearly in a way that you can actually put across your thoughts to another person, that's not something that's taught beyond the grammatical syntax and beyond the actual, formation of, proper prose. How to actually engage an audience, how to actually captivate their attention, and how to retain it. That's not something that's taught in any curriculum, as far as I know, in schools. And to me, that is art. And in the cloud native context, it's extremely important to communicate effectively, because a lot of the communication is asynchronous. Because you, as many conferences as you attend, or as many Zoom meetings you're a part of, most of your discussions, most of your conversations with fellow community members are going to be asynchronous, meaning they're going to be on Slack or any other public forum. So it's essential that you write and are able to communicate well. I wouldn't say write well in the sense that you need to be the next Shakespeare, but you need to have that flair to actually put your point across. And similarly for, again, it's a part of my profession. I'm not going to say that everybody needs to know how to give a conference talk or give a session, but I feel that's important too, because when you meet another person, or when you meet your fellow community members in a real life setting, and you're delivering a session, or even if it's just a virtual one, I think it's essential that you're able to get to the technical part of it, but also that whatever you're conveying, the audience is able to retain it. Because you could go on for like 15 minutes and talk all you want about a technology without the audience absorbing a single thing. And that's not what you want. So I think it's a balance, because as technical as you get, at some point, you are going to have to explain things to someone. If it's not a conference audience, it's probably another community member. And I think having your writing and your speaking skills, I wouldn't say patch down, but improving them is art to me, because I really believe that those are forms of art. And for me, cats are my brief respite from all things technical. My 2 cats are my brief respite from all things technical in the cloud native side of things. So they are like my alarm clocks. If I sit for way too much in front of the computer, or code for way too long, or have a conference session that goes for way too long, be sure that they're going to come and jump right in front of the screen and express their displeasure, because that's how they are. They don't care. They know very well when I need to stop, and after that, if I don't stop, they take their respective actions. So I think that's my side of the story.
That's great. I think with both those things, mentioning the importance of writing is artistic, and no two people do it the same way, and it involves a lot of creativity, and particularly to talk about some of these cloud native concepts that can be relatively intangible or dense or difficult to grasp, and bringing them to life is not something anybody can do. So I think that's a great point. I also think writing it's another way that you can show empathy in terms of because like you said, you're going to be working asynchronously. So you have to be thinking about, based on the words that I'm using, how is the other person going to feel, not just what are they going to think. And then last but not least, how you talked about your cats. I think it's just a really good reminder for everybody, because particularly for folks getting started, it seems really exciting. I want to be involved in everything. You gotta have some balance. And so like you said, your cats are a healthy way to saying, you know what, you need to take a break. You're going to focus on something else now. And that's a good thing. We don't want people getting burned out. This is something you've talked about a lot. So if folks want to check that out more in depth, they can see the talk that you gave them the last KubeCon. But I think that's a really good reminder for everybody. So anyway, we'll have to see what Savitha says from wherever she is about the points that we've talked about. Yeah. But Divya, is always an absolute pleasure. Is there any final message you'd like to leave with the folks that are going to be watching this?
Yeah, so I would just like to say that when you get started off on any journey, it doesn't need to be in the cloud native ecosystem. There's a lot of advice that will get flung your way. A lot of people will say do this, a lot of people will say do that, and a third section of people will say don't do both of these things, do a third thing. There are going to be a lot of opinions that come your way. Don't follow any one of them and stick to them like it's the holy book for your career or your development or your journey in that ecosystem. Do what feels right. Experiment with things. Look at all the sides of the coin and then take a decision, because it's very easy to get pulled in either direction and not know where you're heading. Like for example, if I can just take an example from my own journey. I was very influenced by the cloud ecosystem before, and I wanted to learn a lot about the various types of cloud providers and the offerings that they had within each cloud provider. And then I drilled down into AWS, and then suddenly I realized that hey, no, I actually am not going to use any of this. So why am I actually learning any of this? But the thing is that rerouted me to a completely different path, which is the cloud native ecosystem. And the way I reached there was because I realized that that was something that I wanted to do because it was a part of my job. And that took introspection, because I could learn things for the sake of it. I'm not saying you should not. But figure out what's important to you at that given point in time, because people are going to give you a lot of opinions and a lot of viewpoints are going to be thrown your way. It's on you to decide what is right for you at a given point. Even if you're starting out, do your own research, read up on Google, listen to everybody, but do what works for you. Because if you take one or the other way and then suddenly, stuff doesn't work out, you basically are, following the herd and not reaching anywhere at that point. So do what works for you, because at the end of the day, your path is going to be unique in whatever career, whatever ecosystem you're a part of, in whatever journey you're a part of. Your journey is going to be extremely unique and it's going to be specific to you. So take decisions for yourself rather than being, influenced and, following the herd. I know that sounded really wrong, but I don't know.
Not at all. I think in order to do that is first ask yourself, questions about what are the things that I'm interested in, what are my values, and based on those things, that will help you as a guide to have a better idea about what's really going to work best. And like you said, don't feel pressure that you have to just copy and paste what somebody else has done, because that's great that it worked for them. Does not mean that's going to work for you at all. And I think it's important that anyone who's in a position of trying to provide guidance or mentoring can say, look, this is only my perception based on my experience. I would say this, but I can't say that's the magic formula or answer that's going to work perfectly for you. So I think that's good.
Exactly.
That's good. That's great. Just as we show empathy to others, we also have to show empathy to ourselves. So I think that's, anyway, as always, wonderful conversation with you, Divya. And let's see what Savitha has to say about all these things. I assume she will agree about some things, but she will have other, just as we just said, she's had her own experience doing the things that she's done and working the places where she's worked. So it'll be interesting to see the different things that she might have, like I said, different experiences, different interactions. And that's once again, is that this community is greater than, the sum of all of its parts, the amount of just different experiences and all the things we've been talking about. So I think that's wonderful. You are pretty easy to find, but if people don't know where to find you, where can they find you?
Very active with Twitter, but it's a delicate balance of shitposting and text. So be forewarned that you're not going to find entirely tech content on my timeline. So you can find me on Twitter at Divya_Mohan02. I'm also there on LinkedIn. That's just Divya Mohan, so you can just find me. If you're already on Bart's list, I'm very easy to find. You just need to
very easy. Very easy. Also, CNCF Slack, Kubernetes Slack, you're everywhere.
Yeah. So I am pretty much available on both the Slacks almost all the time. So feel free to bring me there. I'm there as Divya Mohan again. The GitHub ID, I don't think I need to provide here. So in case anybody wants it, it's Divya -Mohan0209.
Perfect. Well, Divya, as always, an absolute pleasure, and look forward to talking to you soon.
Yes, absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on.
All right, cheers. Okay, thank you, Divya. That was amazing. You can see she's live in our comment section, always interacting, always helping folks getting their journeys improved, getting them to the right place where they need to be. Just like I said in my case, was exactly the same. Unfortunately, we weren't able to connect with Savitha. She's been very busy. We've been very busy, but that means we have the perfect excuse to have her back. She's an awesome human being as well. We're going to keep going. All right, we still got some other talks that we need to get through, but I've got my ukulele here, which is a wonderful instrument. If you don't play the ukulele, it's easier than the guitar because it's only got 4 strings. Technically, really only 3 because this string up here at the top, just for a melodic string. Anyway, very nice instrument, very relaxing. Highly recommend it. No matter what you think your musical abilities or inabilities are, it's really just a question of time and practice. Our next speaker is someone who also identifies with time and practice. She played softball in university. Very active athlete, also very active in the DevRel space, working for a company called KubeShop, which you might have heard of. and doing amazing stuff that relate to DevRel, dev advocacy for open source, very much focused on Kubernetes. So, and the other thing that we have in common is that she and I both share an academic background that's not the most usual one. She got her undergraduate degree, I believe, in political science, religious studies, and philosophy. Mine was focused more just exclusively on religious studies. That being said, I want to bring Courtney on. Courtney is also no stranger to the Data on Kubernetes community. So let's get Courtney on with us. As before, folks, keep your questions coming in the chat. Let's kick it off with Courtney. Courtney, what's up?
Hey there, Bart. It's Courtney here to answer a handful of your questions. So let's get started. Let me get my questions out here. Who is Courtney? So, wow, we're starting off with the most difficult ones first, I guess. So who is Courtney? So that's me. I'm Cortney Nickerson. I guess you could say I'm a daughter and a sister, a wife, a mother, a friend. The most difficult ones for your average run-of-the-mill girl. I guess you could say I'm a daughter and a sister, a wife, a mother, a friend, just your average run-of-the-mill girl, I guess. I'm happy and laid back. I'm a lover of books, music, I don't know, good cinema, good food, especially if it's spicy, deep conversations, and life in general. Oh, and I'm also an animal lover and a coffee snob, maybe slightly, a little bit. I drink way too much coffee and caffeine, and definitely have my favorites and idea of what makes a good cup of joe. And yeah, oh, and I love sleeping in. I don't get to do it very often. I've got kids of random ages who don't let me sleep in, and a very fast-paced job that I love, and a handful of hobbies that keep me busy. So I don't get to sleep in very often, but I am a huge fan of doing that. Question number 2, what is my academic background? Okay, so my academic background, I went to university at Syracuse University. It's where I attended school. I actually had thought that I wanted to be a doctor, and so I went into a pre-med course, but took my first philosophy class and randomly got stuck in a religious studies course. My very first semester there, fell in love with both of those things, and transitioned into a triple degree of a political science, focusing mostly on international relations, and then added on philosophy and religious studies. So, and have been asked perpetually since doing that, what in the world was I going to work in, and how did I think I was going to make a living with those degrees? But so far, it's all worked out for the best. Question number 3, what is my professional background? Wow. So I guess my professional background spans quite a few different things. I've done everything from work for and volunteer for a handful of political parties and politicians in my home country. Then I moved abroad, and I've worked in marketing, in sales, in education, in teaching languages. I ran a small business that specialized in language summer camps for a very long time and travel abroad courses. I've also worked in the food industry, and that's where I got my start in the startup world and fell in love with it. And now I work in the tech industry. Started off in the world of DevSecOps in a startup in Spain. and have taken a leap into the world of developer advocacy in my new role with a company called CubeShop, which is a very interesting company. It's got a lot going on, very international. And so I guess all of my studies in international relations and philosophy and religion in a place with so many different people coming from diverse backgrounds is actually paying off. So that's me, my professional background in a nutshell. I've done marketing, sales, communication, teaching, food prep, just about anything and everything, retail, just about anything and everything you can imagine. Question number 4. When did you get involved in cloud native tech? Yeah, so cloud native tech is something that I just kind of took an interest in a few years ago when I was working for a cybersecurity startup. The tool that I was working with happened to be cloud friendly, and I had no idea what that meant. I needed to be able to understand it to be able to communicate about it. So I went down the rabbit hole of figuring out Kubernetes and how that works. And along the way, I met you, Bart, and you were just starting off with the Data on Kubernetes community. And I would say that the DoKC is probably where I got the most experience in the cloud native world. I got introduced to CNCF initiatives, gained a much deeper understanding of what was going on in the cloud native world, and then spent some time writing the newsletter and other things for the community, and meeting community members and asking questions that were very beginner questions, and I still have so many of those. But that's how I got started in cloud native, was participating in the Data on Kubernetes community, because I had a curiosity that kind of stemmed from the job that I was working in. Question number 5. What was your professional experience in the pandemic? Oh, very charged question here. So like I said, I was working for a cybersecurity startup. My role was a remote role. So on one hand, that was a huge advantage during the pandemic, because I continued to have a job, unlike quite a few of my friends in other industries. The tech industry never really stopped. People just moved from working in an office to working at home. So huge advantage there in terms of being able to continue to develop as a professional, and continue to make a wage and make ends meet, for my family, obviously. That said, being totally transparent here, the downside to working through the pandemic as a mother of, at the time, an 18-month-old and a teenager who was just finishing secondary school, was very difficult, because they were both home. Both of my kids were home, and I was working from home. My job continued to be just like always, and my work hours and demands continued to be just as high, and the demands of my kids also continued to be just as high, and most of the time during working hours. So that was a difficult thing to find a balance, because my husband was also working, but in his case outside of the house, so he continued to have to go to the office during that time. And so figuring out a work-life balance during the pandemic was incredibly challenging, exhausting, and most of the time I did not sleep, in spite of me being a huge fan of sleeping in. Sleep was hard to come by. But I learned exponential amounts about myself, about the tech industry, and about the advantages of working in tech and being able to continue to network and function, right, during something like the pandemic, where other people in other industries really struggled to be able to move forward. question number 6. And in comes CubeShop to your life. Tell us about it. Cool. So shortly after the pandemic, the company I was working for got acquired by Datadog, which was very exciting considering that I think I was employee number 12 or something. And one of the first people on the team that wasn't a software engineer of any sort and didn't come from a technical background. So that was very exciting to be involved in that type of acquisition and participate in it. But ultimately, I had to make a decision about what I was going to do professionally. And like I mentioned earlier, I'm addicted to the startup world. I absolutely love it. It's insanely fast-paced, and there's so much going on, and you're always outside of your comfort zone. And for someone like myself, that has become a huge excitement professionally and a way to grow. So I made the decision to finish out the project that I had with the company I was working with and finish out the acquisition process, and then started looking for other projects. And before I knew it, without even really looking too far, I came across CubeShop, and I'm now working as a developer advocate for them. CubeShop is a very cool company. It's the first of its kind tech accelerator in the world. And basically what they do is they have come across 6 different projects currently that work in the Kubernetes space. They're creating different tools for developers, DevOps, GitOps, for just about anything that's going on in Kubernetes, and anyone working in Kubernetes. There is a tool at CubeShop that is being accelerated with teams that are working on it. It's open source projects, and so it's been a fantastic opportunity to be involved in the open source community, to learn more about cloud native technologies, specifically Kubernetes, to talk to more people, and to learn exponential amounts. Obviously, my background is not a tech background, and so I'm still working on learning very publicly how to code. I've had the opportunity to deploy my first web app to a cluster in this role, and yeah, just absolutely love the atmosphere. It's a super international company. We've got people around the world speaking loads of different languages, bringing loads of different experiences into projects and project management and what's going on, and it's been incredibly enriching. And a very exciting ride so far. So I've been with CubeShop for about 6 months. We're heading to KubeCon soon. So if anyone listening is going to be at KubeCon, please come check us out. I am currently working on the Monocle project. So anyone who's looking to find out ways and figure out how to do their Kubernetes configuration tasks pre-deployment to ensure a higher quality deployment, please come talk to me. I'll happily give you a demo and give you some swag there at KubeCon. And if you're just interested in the Kubernetes open source space, please check out CubeShop. We've got really cool projects going on. Again, they're all open source and people can contribute, and we're excited to grow our community of open source contributors and users for our tool, and just continue to learn more about what people need and try to make their lives easier and provide some business value as we go. And final question of the day. What's your advice to other folks with religious studies, philosophy, political science degrees, or anything else who might get into tech? I guess my biggest piece of advice is go for it. Literally, whether you know much about tech, whether you're a programmer, whether you're coming from a marketing background or sales, or you're a stay-at-home mom who is just trying to get back into the job market and an industry, or even a student who's not really sure if school is right for you and you've got something else that you want to do and try, the tech industry is a place for everyone. There are opportunities for everyone. They're looking for different types of people from all over the world to bring in their experiences and diversify projects and find new ways to solve problems, and give tech a deeper meaning, and it's through the human experience that is done. So whether you are finished with a university degree and people are constantly asking you, like they were asking me, what are you going to do with philosophy or religious studies, or whether you're thinking maybe school's not for you, and university isn't the direction you want to go, or maybe you're on a career path that's doing something totally different, but you're burnt out, or you're just not happy there and you want to try something new. My biggest piece of advice for all of those situations is to check out what's going on in tech. There are jobs for everyone. There's a space for everyone, and the more diverse we can make this industry, the better work we're all doing, and the better experiences we will all have to be able to grow and develop. So that's my advice for you. Go for it, believe in yourself. If I can do it, anyone can. So that's it. Thanks so much for listening to me. I hope some of you will reach out. You can find me on Twitter. I'm Tech Talking Mom. That's because I'm either talking tech or being a mom. Or check me out on LinkedIn. Let's connect. Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you very much, Courtney. Amazing. We got her Twitter in the chat, so you can definitely reach out to her. She's also on our Slack. Amazing person. She'll be at KubeCon. Their booth, Kube Shop folks, is actually quite close to our booth, DoK booth. We'll be rocking out there. I'll be rapping live from Detroit, so you can definitely see some videos on Twitter about that. Now we get to the super fun part, which is where we get to bring the folks from our DoK Explorers interns onto the stage to share their thoughts about different aspects of cloud-native technologies, some more focused on the data on Kubernetes side than others. That being said, Divine, I think you should be a panelist now. So whenever you get a chance, turn on your microphone, turn on your camera, and we can get cracking.
Can you see me?
Hello, Divine.
Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly. What's up, man?
I'm good. What about you?
Good, good, good. So, Divine, what are we going to be talking about today?
So we're going to be talking about data security on Kubernetes. So basically, right, kind of giving a background, right, to the perspective of our listeners, a nice introduction to data security on Kubernetes. So I don't know if I can share my screen.
Yes, you should be able to. The green button at the bottom, the arrow, you should be able to.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
Folks, if you have questions, please feel free to get them in the chat, and we can always continue the conversation on Slack as well. Divine is an amazing person. I'm going to leave his Twitter so you can follow him as well in the chat while he's talking about data security on Kubernetes.
Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah, so data security on Kubernetes. So how this talk will go, so it's kind of like a 4-slide talk, pretty short, but I hope gives us much information. So we're going to start with why the need for data security. The weird question, because everyone needs security, home security, Then first steps to securing data on Kubernetes, the data security checklist, Kubernetes data security checklist, beyond the checklist, and how the data on Kubernetes community is helping, right, ensure data security on Kubernetes. So to start, I went to the last slide. So to start, why the need for data security? Basically, right, data, your personal information, your email, your health information, those things are like peculiar to a user, right? So it shouldn't be right for anyone to have access to that. So I think that explains the need for data security. And when building applications, right, you try as much as possible to implement security, passwords, authentication, our log in order to protect data. So basically, that's the need for data security. But in the Kubernetes context, right, securing data is kind of a bit complicated But the first steps to securing data on Kubernetes is secrets. So Kubernetes there's this resource called secrets. So currently I'm reading from the documentation. So a secret resource is basically, right, any vital information. Okay, to give a background, when creating applications, you kind of like have a database. Most applications use a database. Kind of have like a database, and to connect your application to that database, it will be like a login details, password, or let's say you have some TLS LS certificate for securing networks. So these data are kind of like sensitive data, right? Hence the creation of the resource secrets. So secrets is an object that contains a small amount of sensitive data, such as password tokens or a
Yep.
Yeah, so I think I dropped off a bit.
That's okay. Just share your screen again and you should be fine.
Yeah.
Yep, that's okay.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yep, looks great.
Yeah, so with secrets, right, instead of like having to put this, so normally there have been like issues. I know I personally made the mistake myself when building an application. I see myself putting this sensitive database, login passwords, and some sensitive data in my application code, and pushing that to a Git repository, whether public or private. And yeah, doing that, right, that is a big, huge vulnerability, because once an attacker gets access to that repository, or the secret is leaked in some way, everyone has access to your data. So maybe your database in this context. So aside from secrets, right, secrets on its own by default, as you can read the caution on the Kubernetes documentation, secrets by default are stored unencrypted in etcd. That's the underlying data store for Kubernetes. So the Kubernetes creators have given us steps in order for us to take to kind of like make sure these are secret data, this information that leads to our database, information that leads to database in this context. So basically, the first step is enabling encryption at rest. So what encryption at rest means basically is encryption at rest means basically is the database which you store the data. Yeah, you're sending data over the internet, you're storing, there's a database password, but there should be some encryption mechanism. But for context of this particular talk, we will not need to go into that detail. So to move to the next part, the Kubernetes security checklist. So basically, there's kind of like a checklist while implementing, according to these steps, right? While implementing security and storing data on Kubernetes. So if you also look at here, the next step after enabling encryption at rest, enable and configure role-based, RABAC means role-based access authentication. So basically, to set privilege access to certain secrets to users. So let's say I'm the cluster administrator, and this other person is Bart is the developer. So I have some certain privilege to access some certain sensitive data. Bart doesn't. Bart has, and I don't. So that's basically just what role-based authentication means. Then to go into the security checklist, I'm going to the Kubernetes documentation. There's a lot of information here, like things to do to secure your application. That's your data. But there's one more thing that the Kubernetes documentation highlights, right? Like it was highlighted on the secrets documentation, is that checklists are not sufficient for attaining a good security posture on their own. And this is because of the complexity of Kubernetes. So I don't know if you tried storing data on Kubernetes. I don't want to go into the details, but basically, basics would be you create a persistent volume, create a persistent volume claim. So like there's a lot of things moving, right? So that's where like kind of like using third-party tools come in, which was also highlighted in the Kubernetes documentation here, right? That consider using secret stock providers and other third-party tools to secure your secrets, your sensitive data. Then also in creating data on Kubernetes, right? And storing data on Kubernetes, there are some other tools, and to highlight one of them, data core. So management simplicity, right? Doesn't require the complex knowledge in order to store data on Kubernetes. So like using all these external tools can like kind of make things a little bit seamless. So if to give an overview, I'll say you first implement secrets, right? You first implement the secret object, right? Then next you make sure your data is stored correctly in a secured server. Then these privileges according to these steps, and also using other tools, right, in order to store your data efficiently and to reduce the complexity, right, with the checklist alongside, because as things are moving, right, things are shifting, pods are dying, pods are restarting, you're onboarding new people to your team, several things are moving around, right? So having all this, right, with the checklist, using other tools like I mentioned, it just gives you that sense of security, right? That sense of security, and also make sure that your systems are properly secured. And there's also one thing I want to highlight, right? Beyond the checklist, beyond using an external tool or not, it's social engineering, right? So I don't know if you guys heard recently of, not recently, kind of like in 2020, of the attack on the social engineering attack on Twitter, right? So they got access to the Twitter internal systems through, basically social engineering means, right, kind of like an attacker coercing unknowingly, let's say, someone that has access to this sensitive data, someone that has access to these tools, right, the third-party tool, someone that configured this, that used the checklist to configure the entire Kubernetes security system. So exploiting them, right, exploiting their weaknesses in order to gain access to the internal systems. So Twitter had the issue in 2020, right? So, and they got access and lost some data. I don't know if you can remember the hacked accounts on, or the hacked account of several prominent people, even I think the former president of the United States, and which led to several frauds and all, right? Though Twitter was able to react imminently, they still suffer criticism, right? So beyond implementing Kubernetes secrets, beyond implementing the Kubernetes security checklist to secure your data, beyond using external tools like data core, also kind of like, I don't know, I'll target the phrase human firewall, right? So educating your engineers, educating your team members, those that have those privileges, right, to data, those access, educating them on what's on social engineering, educating them on what these attackers do in order to be very secure. Then moving on to the next and final on my talk is how the data on Kubernetes community is helping. So yeah, today is the DoK Community Explorer Day. So basically, we're currently like creating challenges, right? Creating resources to help beginners, intermediates, and every other person understand how to implement some of these Kubernetes checklists, right? Not only implementing some of these Kubernetes security checklists, also to use these external tools and just creating several resources to know how to properly host data on, store data on Kubernetes, because as we know, Kubernetes by default is stateless, and data on Kubernetes, not new, but kind of like, is a bit complex. So yeah, that's how the data on Kubernetes community is helping. I hope my talk, though short, was kind of like insightful and gave some like overview and kind of like intermediate knowledge on data and security on Kubernetes. Some of the links I used, I'll share this slide. You can access and read documentation on Kubernetes secrets. There's a lot of stuff there. I also wrote an article on Kubernetes secrets that will be published in a few days. And yeah, check out the checklist and check out other tools and get involved in the DoK Explorer challenges and learn more about data on Kubernetes and how to secure data on Kubernetes. And I guess you guys must have seen this, my last slide. So this is my mood right now. And thank you for listening to me. And yeah, I think that's the end of my talk.
Fine, that was fantastic. The end of this talk, certainly not the end of your career as a speaker. How many how many talks have you given, by the way?
I think this is my second. So I've given some in-person meetup talks. So my first, let's see, official talk was the Kubernetes Days of Africa, KCD Africa rather. So I think this is my second, and I think I have some lined up for the end of this year.
Excellent, good. And
so how did I do?
Yeah, and we'll be seeing you in Detroit very, very soon.
Sure.
I think we can all agree that you did a very nice job. It's a complex subject, but it's something that can't be. But it's something that can't be underestimated. And
exactly.
I think that I just tweeted this during your talk that most organizations would agree that data is the most important asset that a company can have. One, if not the most, one of the most.
It's what runs everything.
And so, regarding its security in all shape, different forms, it's something that can't be underestimated. And it's in an environment that can be relatively complex. And so really, really, really got to be careful with it, whether it's misconfigurations, whether it's not anticipating vulnerabilities, things of that nature. These are things that we're hearing about time and time again. So I thank you for sharing that information with us today. I already shared your Twitter in the chat so people can find you. And as you said, you are very active in our Explorers team. So folks want to interact, reach out, they can do so on Slack. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
Awesome. Good. Our next speaker we will bring on is Omkar. I'm going to promote him to a panelist. I'm also going to bring out the ukulele because he asked me to play the ukulele. Omkar, whenever you are ready, you can turn on your microphone and your camera. Good job. How you doing, man?
Hi. Hello. How are you?
Good, good, good. We are ready to hear you talk. What are you going to talk about today, Omkar?
Yeah. So today we are going to talk about working with CI/CD pipelines.
Very good. Excellent. So that being said, if you want to share your screen and show us what you're going to talk about.
Yes, sure.
Okay.
Just a minute.
Perfect. And for folks who might just be arriving, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Also, if you haven't joined our Slack, why not? Join our Slack, get in, and jump into the DoK Explorers channel. And wonderful folks like Divine and Omkar would be happy to help you get onboarded and started with your data on Kubernetes community journey. So that being said, Omkar, if you want to take it away, go full screen, zoom in as much as you want, go for it.
Yeah. Just a minute.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. So yeah, today we are going to view the topic about working with CI/CD pipelines, right? So hey, I'm Omkar Kulkarni. I'm an open source contributor and currently intern at DoK. I also got Linux Foundation Scholarship 2022, and currently I'm learning DevOps, and I love open source. So yeah, so today's topic is working with CI/CD pipelines, right? So let's see how the talk will go. Let's first we will talk about overview. What is the CI/CD pipelines and all this stuff. What's the difference between CI/CD, and we'll dive deep into the continuous integration, that is a continuous delivery, continuous deployment, and also there are a few tools which helps in the CI/CD automation. So let's dive into what is exactly CI/CD is. Okay, so CI/CD is a method of frequently deliver applications to customers by introducing automation into the stages of app development. Okay, so like the main concept of attributed to the CI/CD are continuous integration and continuous delivery and continuous deployment also. Okay, so CI/CD is the solution of the to the problems integrating new code can cause for the development operations teams. Okay, so taken together all these uh, taken together all these uh, taken together disconnected participants are often referred to as a CI/CD pipeline. Okay, and supported by the development operations teams working in agile way with either a DevOps or site reliability approach. Okay. Okay. Okay, what's the like difference between CI and CD? Okay, so CI/CD has different meanings. Here you can see that continuous integration, continuous delivery, and continuous deployment. Continuous delivery, continuous deployment. So in the continuous integration, we have all the developing methods. There are building, testing, and merging our code. And in the continuous delivery, the automatically we have the GitHub repositories of the code base and automatically released to the repository. Okay, and continuous deployment in the automatically deployed to the production, deploying to the customers. Okay, so let's dive deep into continuous integration. What is the continuous integration? So in the modern application development, the goal is to have a multiple developers, right, working with simultaneously on the features of the same app, right? So however, the organization is set up to the merge all the code base, all the branching source code together one day, right? So continuous integration helps us to developers to merge their codes changes back to the shared branch. And once the developer changes to an application are merged, those changes are validated by automatically building the automatically applications running different levels and automated testing. So this is all about continuous integration. So let's dive deep into the continuous delivery. So continuous delivery, the goal of the continuous delivery is to have a code base that is always ready for deployment to a production environment, right? So this is the basic idea of the continuous delivery is. And the continuous delivery, every stage from the merger of code changes to the delivery of the production ready builds involves test automation and code release automation. At the end of that process, the operation team is able to deploy an app to the production quickly and easily. So it will easy for us to deploy the application to the customers. Okay, so the next is the continuous deployment. So the continuous deployment, in that the final stage of the CI/CD pipelines is the continuous deployment. So continuous deployment means that the developers change the cloud's application could go live within a minute of writing it. So the final stage, it is the continuous deployment as an extension of a continuous delivery, which automates the production and repository continuous deployments, automates releasing an app to the production. And continuous, all these connected CI/CD practices make deployment of an application less risky, where it easier to release changes to apps in the small in the small pieces rather than all at once. Like it divides all the application in the small pieces. Okay, so the CI/CD tools. CI/CD. What are the CI/CD tools? So CI/CD tools are the tools which we can use or which will help a team to automate their development, deployment, and testing. Some tools specifically handle the integration side. Some handles the development side, or some handles the deployment side. So we have one very popular example here, that is Jenkins, which is an open source tool for handle the all the CI/CD tasks. You can check it out and you can use it. So yeah, thank you for this talk. Amazing. It's a DoK Explorers community it is, and involved in the DoK community. Join the DoK Slack, and here are my also socials. You can connect with me on Twitter, GitHub, or LinkedIn. And thank you for this talk. Am I audible? Wait 1 minute.
Yep.
Yeah, hello.
Yep. No, just wanted to ask, very, very good job. Not necessarily the easiest topic. I shared your Twitter in the chat so folks can talk to you if they want to, but just wanted to ask, just like as Divine, how many talks have you given before?
I didn't give any talk. This is my first talk ever.
Good job. You did a very, very good job. I very happily have blocked out my memory of the first time I gave a talk. It's something I prefer not to remember, but I think you did a very, very good job.
Yeah,
and I think that's important for folks to see that these are the experiences that we're building here in the community with the folks that are in the Explorers program. And you did a fantastic job. Yeah, really, really liked it.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
Our pleasure. All right. Thank you very much, Omkar. We will be bringing on our next speaker. And let me just make sure I get my order correct. Don't want to get this wrong. Yashharth, are you there? Can I get you promoted to be a panelist? Let's see if we can make this happen. Yashharth, whenever you get a chance, turn on your camera and microphone. In the meantime, Yashharth, we can play a little bit of ukulele.
Hi, Bart. How do you do?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Frankly, a little bit nervous seeing all these people give such amazing talks and explain things in such a great way. But yeah, push through the thing.
I'm sure you will. I'm sure you'll be able to. Now, really quickly, for folks who don't know, Yashharth hates cricket, absolutely hates the sport. Probably has not seen a cricket match since he was a child, and was forced to by a family member. But Yashharth, you actually love cricket a lot. And if you had to choose 2 players to have on your team, who would they be?
Well, without a doubt, Don Bradman and Sachin Tendulkar. You really don't need anyone other than that.
Okay, we'll have to have another talk. And I actually mean it because there is a lot that I have to learn about cricket that I don't already know. And so in the same way that you're very knowledgeable about cricket, what are you going to be sharing with us today? What's your talk about?
Today, I'll be talking about MySQL in deploying MySQL application in Kubernetes. Okay. And honestly, I'm pretty honored to be giving a talk in an open source community about two of the arguably biggest open source projects of my time, at least after I was born, 2002.
Okay,
so
good.
MySQL has been a staple for 20 years. It is everywhere, and Kubernetes is without a doubt the fastest growing open source project. Everyone is using it. It's the new cool thing to do. So yeah, pretty honored to give a talk about that. My talk will not just cover my information about the subject, but I've also tried to make sure that I give people my perspective, the way I approach this problem. And I hope that is something people can take up, since I'm a beginner, and that is something I believe I have to give.
Yep. All right. That being said, if you want to start sharing your screen, go for it.
Yeah. Wait a second.
Okay.
I hope I'm visible.
Yes, you are. Yes, it is. Yep. Perfect.
Yeah. Awesome. So my talk will be about MySQL in Kubernetes. My talk will be, as I said, it will be about MySQL in Kubernetes. It will be today we will be talking about two of the biggest open source projects in my particular lifetime. First of all, I'm really honored to be presenting this on DoK Explorers Day. And let's just get into it. So when I was first asked to give a talk on DoK Explorers Day and to basically talk about deploying MySQL applications in Kubernetes, my first thought was, first of all, I'm greatly honored. Second of all, how the hell am I going to present that? I don't know anything about this because I'm a beginner. So I went to the best friend that all beginners have on open source, and that friend being Google. And here's what Google had to say about it. So Google told me about MySQL operator in Kubernetes, and Google said, and these are the exact words, be sure I have edited some out because it was getting into a very, very lengthy definition, that Kubernetes uses stateful sets to create replicas and operators to run stateful applications. Now that is a very dangerous definition. When I first saw that, I was like blown away. Like, what is this? I don't understand any of this. And I think that is many of our first response to open source as well. Like we see this case, so many GitHub repositories. We see so many people posting about it on Twitter, and we see so many people making such incredible progress. And we are like, what is this? I don't think I can do that. And so when I first saw that, originally I was preparing an entire list of topics, like I'll discuss this. But then when I saw this, I decided to take a step back and just approach this particular definition that, of course, our friend Mr. Google had given me. So first of all, let us discuss, what does this singular statement mean? And by the end of this talk, I hope that you guys will understand this statement, and that fear that all beginners face, that it will be gone. So first of all, what is Kubernetes uses stateful sets to create replicas and operators to run stateful applications. So let's take it from the one. What are stateful applications? So there are two types of application we have. First, they are stateful, and others are, as people might guess, stateless. So in stateless applications, these in both of these applications are classified based on what changes we can incur to its state by interacting with it. That is a simple explanation. For example, have you ever Googled something, and you watched in your search history, the next day when you went it, the link, instead of being blue, it turned purple. That means that the Google page, that the Google search engine remembered that you once clicked on this link. That remembrance is what we are talking about, and where that remembrance is stored. So when we interact with any application, when we interact with any web page or anything, we change its state, and where that state is stored is basically classifies them as either stateless or stateful. Stateless applications, as you might guess, they don't have a state of their own. Whenever they receive any queries, any information, any request for information, they ask the database to draw they draw it from the database, and then they give us the answer to our query. For example, Wikipedia. You click on a Wikipedia link, you get the information about Wikipedia in front of you, and that's that. But stateful applications are different. Stateful applications do not have their basic that same basic uh, non-storage of state. Stateful applications remember you, where they remember your interaction with them. They remember they remember when you have talked to them. They remember how you have interacted with them. Basically, they will store the state in which you interact with them. So you can say, well, Yashharth, obviously stateless applications are better. You can connect a stateless application to a database, and you can pass the query to the stateless application, and the database will supply that query. That seems like a fairly logical system. The problem is, while that works for public repositories and such, that system will not work if a limited amount of people are using it and accessing mostly the same type of data from it, since it will unnecessarily increase the network traffic. So what stateful application does, it remembers what the user asked for before in its own. Remember, both of them remember what the user asked for. But the difference is where they remember. The stateless application stores that remembrance in their databases, while the stateful application stores that remembrance within themselves. And that's the basic idea of stateful applications. Now, here we have, so basically we have Kubernetes. Kubernetes is basically an application deployer, and it is built to deploy stateless applications. Now, MySQL, like all databases, are by definition a stateful application. So therein lies our first problem, that MySQL is built to deploy stateless applications, while all databases are stateful applications. So we get these. So then what do we do? What do we do from here? So the answer here is pretty simple. First of all, let us approach it. Let us approach it from the point of view of a stateless application. You have a stateless application. You want to deploy it on Kubernetes. That is the easiest thing in the world to do. You basically you go to Kubernetes, you deploy it. It creates pods, which are basically replicas of that different of that application, of that stateless application. Those pods are completely identical to each other, and they can and they can be used for scaling up your operations. Now you come to stateful applications. Now what do you do with stateful applications? You again create pods. The difference here the difference here is, in stateless applications, by the way, you create them with a replica set deployment. You deploy them with a replica set. Now in the stateful applications, you deploy them with a stateful set. First, now what exactly does a stateful set do, and how does it differ? So as I said earlier, in stateful applications, you already have your programs packed in the site. You already have the information inside your programs. Now, that is a very dangerous thing if you are replicating and increasing the scale of the data. So that might for that we have to make sure that two things. First, all the replicas, all the different forks, they are communicating perfectly with each other. The second thing which we have to make sure of is that the second thing which we have to make sure of is that there is one master, and there are the other classes. That means that only one database will be allowed to write, and both read and write, while the others will only be allowed to read. This is to prevent confusion, as many of you might be able to guess. So that basically tells us. So we have deployed a stateful application, but our journey is not over yet. So all those different operators I was talking about, yeah, you will have to manually manage them to make sure that there is no conflict, that there is no problem in your system, and as such. Now, this brings up a big problem. The entire point of Kubernetes is to automate the application deployment process. Is that you don't have to do anything manually. Kubernetes will do it for you. Now, this brings us the question: if you can't have the automation, why use Kubernetes? Which is a fantastic question, and the answer to that is that operating is something that can only be done by a human. It can only be done manually. So of course, we as programmers chose the obvious path and we automated it. And that is how we get the MySQL operator in Kubernetes. The MySQL operator in Kubernetes at its most basic level is what Kubernetes provides us with as a substitute for manual operations to deploy stateful applications. Kubernetes is still built basically at the end of the day for stateless applications. But with operators, we can use it to deploy stateful applications like databases as well. There are many different databases that can be used, but one which I would recommend is Percona. And Percona is a server for MySQL. It basically optimizes your query. It is a fork of MySQL that has been running for about 7 to 8 years, and it is an open source project and has consistent updates in it. The biggest advantage that Percona provides us with is that in MySQL, many of our queries are not optimized as such. So Percona helps us there in by helping us support by helping us perform more RDOS queries and by performing optimization of queries. That is that is basically my theory, and I hope you understand this statement completely now. It uses stateful sets to create replicas and operators to run stateful applications. Join us at DoK community at our Slack and Twitter page. And thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to check it out and listen and learn. Very, very well done. Not an easy concept, and you jumped right into it. I really respect you for doing that. It wasn't easy, but this is what we're all about doing. All right, like you can join our community within 1 month. They already give you the talk. You're jumping right into these concepts that for some people seem a little bit strange, and you're making them look really, really simple. So great job. Much appreciated.
Thank you very much, Bart.
Okay, good. So last but not least, well, actually we got a couple of people. So I need to get Tapan in here, but in the meantime, I'll get Abhijit to jump on as a panelist. So whenever you're there, please turn on your microphone and camera.
Am I audible? I'm not sure if I'm audible.
You're audible and visible and beautiful.
I feel very disappointed because I'm wearing the Hacktober t-shirt, but the frame will suddenly drop and even my face cannot fit within the frame. So
all good, not a problem.
I hope all of you had a good day. I mean, Divine gave an excellent talk. So did Tapan and Omkar. Sorry. I'm bad at names.
Everybody's giving good talks. That's all that matters.
Yes. Tapan was supposed to give a talk now. So let me add some important links here to Bart so that it can be forwarded.
Yep.
I'm a bit sick, so excuse me if I go off in the middle.
It's all good.
Yeah. So, can you get started?
Yep, go for it.
So, hello everyone. I'm hoping all of you had a very good day. And I'm Abhijit Ganesh. I'm here going to talk about our open source initiative and why you should consider it. Speaking of open source, I'm already wearing the Hacktober t-shirt. If you're looking forward to getting the Hacktober t-shirt, pay attention to this talk and you'll be understanding why you should be contributing to DoK and in general, the larger open source community. So let's get started. Coming to the point, why should you care and why should you contribute to open source, right? Open source is like an ocean and all of us are like tiny fishes in the pond. I mean, in the ocean, but as a pond. all of us are trying to make the pond better in some way, but unfortunately or fortunately, people feel their little efforts are not appreciated enough, or people feel it's not valuable enough to contribute. Well, here's where our change is going to be. Open source is an ecosystem where every little change matters. And this is why there have been various open source projects which have gone out of maintenance, out of use, because there weren't enough maintainers, there wasn't enough contributors. And this is purely due to the fact that there haven't been enough contributions. Now, all of this sounds fine, but it doesn't add up, does it? Because honestly speaking, we can be a great open source contributor, but how does the end user, who's not a programmer, who's not a tech developer, understand? Well, coming to the point here, all of us, let's say, use Android devices or iPhone devices. They have some amount of open source software written in it. All of the software which we use have a lot of open source components which we never will see, and probably they'll never see the light, because they're all so packed under the layers that only a true tech person might be able to figure out. Now, in the world of tech, it's not about highlighting and showing that you're doing this open source work to everyone. It's about contributing for the better cause, so that tomorrow your Android code doesn't stop working because it's built on top of open source. Now, coming to the DoK's open source initiative, we are rebuilding our Explorers World website. And now you might be wondering, what's Explorers World? Well, Bart had suggested that we should go hands-on about learning with Kubernetes. And we had come up with an idea where we allow our participants and contributors to play with Kubernetes without much struggle. By struggle here, I mean installing, maintaining, all of that. Because when you're installing a Kubernetes cluster, it takes considerable amount of effort to get started. And to step aside all the due complications, we came up with Killer Coda. We are proud to say that we use Killer Coda for a lot of our cases, but I'll be really grateful if you can add the link. We'll be soon creating Killer Coda /data on Kubernetes, which will be coming out soon. So this is our Killer Coda initiative where our contributors can learn Kubernetes without installing it, right? You don't have to worry about installing anything. Most of the environment is taken care of. All you need to do is to pay attention, focus on learning. Now, coming to the open source initiative where we're trying to build, we are rebuilding our Explorers World website. So we're using a framework called Astro for this. You can read about it there. And but if you can add the GitHub link to the Explorers World website, which we're rebuilding, I'd be really grateful for that. And if you're someone who's extremely new to open source, let me add our open source guide, which we recently made. Just a minute. Open source. Oops. I didn't send the link to Bart. But I think you can post the link now. Now, if you can refer to this, you can understand how open source works in general. I didn't dive deep into the technical nuances of how to contribute or why you should contribute. Instead, I've just added the routine technical steps which are relevant. So if you follow this, it should be good enough to get started with open source. And with all that being said, you're incentivized to contribute to Hacktoberfest. So if you're looking forward to contribute to a new project, you should really check us out. Thank you.
Okay. Wow. Very, very fast, very to the point, very efficient. I believe I got most of the links. I got the links in the YouTube live chat, so folks can check those out. On top of it, if you want to get onboarded, if you want to get started with the DoK Explorers initiative, Abhijit is definitely a good person to talk to. He's leading the team. He's been working with us for a while, doing an amazing job, I might add. That being said, if there's any questions, like I said, feel free to reach out in the chat or ask directly in Slack. You should have quite easy time joining us on Slack and getting onboarded with the resources. Abhijit, anything else we haven't mentioned?
You can send in my website link, which has all my socials. They can access that. And apart from that, you should really check out our Slack channel. We're really booming right now. And if you check out right now, you might be able to find out some new interesting resources. We're coming up with a Golang channel for our new contributors. And with that being said, I should pay way for Tapan.
Good. We've got a question from Bhavesh in the chat asking you, Abhijit, when will you add a solution for Killer Coda challenges?
Currently, we're in the process of revamping the Lakota challenges because we're not exactly sure about how to, phase them in and out. We are revamping the whole structure. So once we're done with that, we'll be releasing our solution soon.
Very good. Question answered. Well done. Perfect. Thank you, Abhijit. Let's get Tapan on stage now. Tapan, if you're there,
thanks, man. Bye.
Cheers. You can Tapan, if you're there, you can turn on your microphone, your camera. We can get you started.
Hey everyone.
Hey, what's up, man? How you doing?
Awesome. Like, I'm very sorry to miss my cue because actually, like, me and Abhijit were actually talking till the last minute while I was like waiting for my cue and like I was preparing my slides and everything. It's like a hell of a week.
It's all good. That's all good.
Yeah, let's get started. I think.
Let's do it.
Thanks for having me here first, and I'll just get on with my presentation. Let me start sharing my screen. Okay. Can you guys please confirm if you can see my screen?
Yep, looks great.
Okay, interesting. So before diving into this, let me give you a brief intro of myself. I'm Tapan. I recently joined DoK Explorers as an intern, and I have been working with Kubernetes since 2017. Have deployed. Practically I'm a freelancer. I have worked with multiple clients delivering Kubernetes-based solutions, helping them evolve into the Kubernetes space, into the cloud native space. And the journey has been really fulfilling, and I think that has kind of led me to this particular place with this awesome people here. And I think we are doing some great work. And right now I'm gonna show you exactly what we have been working on for the last, I think, 10 days or something. This is my first challenge with these guys, and I'll be discussing today why backups are important for the Kubernetes from a Kubernetes context. And later on, I will give you one of the solutions that I prefer to basically solve this particular problem and why do I do that. Let's dive directly into this. So let me give you an overall brief of like what the journey of stateful applications on Kubernetes has been. So this is the data from CNCF survey 2018. So as you can see, like here, so the left side diagram is basically showing the number of respondents who are facing challenges in any particular domain inside the Kubernetes or cloud native. So for example, there are different domains like security, storage, and stuff like that. So out of all the 2,400 respondents, out of which I think 72% are people with 500 to 5,000 people companies, which is really big and interesting to see so many enterprise kind of companies come into Kubernetes. We can see here that since November 2016 to July 2018, if you see this last particular section, the people who find storage as a challenge in Kubernetes or cloud native has decreased from like 48% to 30%. And it has been like one of the steepest decreases across all the domain challenges that are there in the system. So basically, Kubernetes started off as predominantly a place or a platform where we can very easily scale stateless applications, basically containerized applications, because the container is very native to the whole architecture, and Kubernetes provides a platform to scale it and to make it more fault tolerant, more resilient, basically. But there has always been challenges with data when it comes to running data applications on Kubernetes. But as we can see here, till July 2018, there has been a decrease. Basically, there has been new technologies coming up into the cloud native storage, which basically is making people more confident in adopting the cloud native storage and making it a part of the Kubernetes adoption journey. So this is 2018. Like we have this statistics, basically 30% of people still find Kubernetes, like storage on Kubernetes, as a challenge. Let's see where this goes to. 2019, we have 1337 respondents, and 49% of them are enterprise level companies. And as you can see from the left side, only 5% of respondents are actually people who don't want to leverage storage on Kubernetes. They don't want to run applications, data applications, stateful applications on Kubernetes, which is, I think their opinion. But basically, so 95% of people are either running workloads in production, stateful workloads in production, or they are evaluating their options of running stateful applications in production. And all these different technologies that you can see here, they are either like they are all these technologies are providing different kinds of storage solutions, mapping their cloud-based storage solutions, cloud-native storage solutions to the Kubernetes. So basically, 2018 to 2019, there is definitely an increase in the number of these projects which provide cloud-native storage, and that has increased the adoption. Fast forward to 2020, you guys can see here 55% of respondents use stateful applications in containers in production. And 48% of the total respondents are enterprise-grade companies. So that basically means stateful applications in Kubernetes, something that was kind of a taboo in 2016 or something that was not looked forward to, is now becoming mainstream, guys. So it's like, people are trying to leverage the scalability and the fault tolerance and resilience of the Kubernetes and containerized patterns with scaling their database or data applications over the globe. Basically, this is the gist of the adoption that we're seeing. So why I'm telling you why storage-based applications or data applications are getting more prevalent, to make you understand that how big of a challenge the data protection, data backups, and data migration are as of now in Kubernetes. They are being actively worked upon, and many cool solutions are already in the space. But like previously, when we were using traditional architectures, there were like data protection, data backups, they were still a problem. They were still a part of the architecture. And the same thing has kind of come in a different format when we are moving the traditional applications to the Kubernetes or to the containerized domains. With the increase in the adoption of cloud native storage, there is an increase in the requirement for planning about data migrations, data backup, data protection, basically. And so how what exactly is the domain of backing up a Kubernetes cluster? What are the different things? So right now I'm showing you a rough diagram that I created, I think 15-20 minutes back. So forgive me if I missed something out. This is the whole like very abstract idea of let's say if you're running a Kubernetes cluster in any cloud, this is how it's going to look like in a very abstract manner. Like if you see the blue box, that's the domain of the Kubernetes cluster. Now let's say whenever you have Kubernetes cluster, you can like have applications which are stateless applications, you can have deployment services, etc. You can have stateful applications, which is basically stateful set. And in Kubernetes world, you can create so obviously this comes without saying that stateful applications, they are the ones that will have data stored in them, but data ultimately gets stored on disks. So Kubernetes have different constructs in its domain, which basically says that persistent volume claim, persistent volume are equivalent to disks in the cloud domain that Kubernetes will now leverage for the applications to use, basically. Whenever you create a stateful application, you will automatically use a persistent volume, and the persistent volume will basically, it's like Kubernetes' way of saying, hey, provision this amount of disk for me and attach it to my container. This is how it works. But as you see, with stateful applications, things kind of get outside of the Kubernetes domain itself. Like basically, there is a hard disk involved, which is if you're running on-prem, it's your cluster administrator responsibility. If you're running in cloud, it's the cloud responsibility. This is just the blue box, the Kubernetes cluster. Now, definitely there will be cloud native databases also. For example, right now you can have Azure MySQL, Azure PostgreSQL, or any other managed services, managed databases that the cloud providers provide. You can also utilize those. But the problem is that even those technologies, they require continuous backups. They require to be tested out for backups. So basically, and ultimately those things are also using disks, and all these technologies, they come with different kinds of backing tools, backup tools, migration tools, and stuff like that, where you can define the backup policies and everything. So this is the whole domain. If I tell you that right now we are running a Kubernetes cluster with a stateful application, or it is connecting with, let's say, a database outside the Kubernetes but in the cloud, you have to think of backing up everything that is in the diagram right now. Exactly. So yeah, this is the scope of the Kubernetes backup. What are the key things that we should consider whenever we think about data backups? So the first thing and the foremost, it has absolutely been security, be it encryption at rest, be it encryption in flight. Whenever data is moving, that is data should be encrypted. Whenever it's at the place in the storage, it should be encrypted. Second thing, which is kind of my favorite, ease of implementation and maintenance. From the operator standpoint, from the person who is the solutions architect, it should be, if it is easy for me to provide such a solution to my clients, it's very intuitive. Why shouldn't I use that? Backup immutability. So let's say when you take a backup of your data, uh, the backup should not be able to like modified, for example, by any bad actor or any other reason. The backup should not be corrupted in any case. So backup immutability, that is a paramount scenario. Periodic testing of the backup restores. Hey, without any testing, like a backup is as good as its restore. Like you don't want to wake up in the morning, try to restore something point in time and only say it doesn't work. Right now my database is freezed. That is, you don't have any way to, it's just like a formality of doing backups without having to test it out in as restores. So you have to periodically test if the restores are working. And the last one definitely is cost efficiency. Like you should be paying for the backup, the storage that is getting used while doing it. But let's say if you can opt out of paying for the other infrastructure that is used for creating and maintaining the backups, that is an added advantage. So yeah, these are some of the things that we should be considering for backups. So now that we have dived into the problems, dived into like what exactly is the domain of backups in Kubernetes, I'll just say one thing. So my understanding of a solution in cloud or cloud native is that a solution is as elegant as the ease with which it solves a problem, basically. So what I mean by this is actually the second point that is mentioned here, ease of implementation and maintenance. So if there is one solution, rather than I have to write scripts for backing up Kubernetes and like different scripts for backing up the data disks and different scripts for backing up the RDS instances or like cloud databases, if I have one solution that can cover all of this, with all the added advantages and features, that is security, backup immutability, and all those stuff. That is something that is really to be looked forward to. And yeah, without taking any more time, I'll be giving you a brief about the solution. This is not from my slides. This I'm just going to the website of those guys, and they are providing a kick-ass solution right now for backing up, or let's say they are providing Kubernetes backup as a service, as well as data protection for Kubernetes and cloud native. So it's like a very cool fusion of two different but yet very related technologies. So so this is basically Cloud Casa, which is a solution that is provided by very cool people at Datalogic. And so why should I use this? Like how does it solve the problems that you already mentioned? So first things first, it's cloud native. If you're talking about Kubernetes, if you're talking about cloud-based databases, if you're talking about cloud-based cloud native disks, it will cover everything for you under one particular SaaS offering only. So that is one thing which is why it is very cool. Support all the distributions of Kubernetes. So right now in the production, like whenever somebody says that I want to use Kubernetes in production, most of the time people try to use a managed service for a managed Kubernetes offering. Most of the cloud providers provide that right now. Like Azure provides AKS, Amazon provides EKS and stuff. So it runs with everything. It runs with cloud provider managed Kubernetes. It runs with your own hosted Kubernetes. It runs everywhere, wherever Kubernetes is. So this is really a Kubernetes native solution for backups, basically. Fair pricing, definitely we'll come to that later on. It's basically capacity-based pricing. Secure, why is it secure? So basically it has the configurability to either bring your own storage. So let's say if you are having your own S3 buckets, if you are having your own keys for encryption, if you're having your own policies, you can bring that, or you can use Cloud Casa's own storage solution, which is like an air cap solution where you can store your database, your backups, like your database backups, your cluster backups and everything. And it's completely secure, it's completely encrypted. And yeah, that's really free, and that's really intuitive. Next thing, free service plan. That is definitely one thing that I want. If I'm pitching this to somebody, then yeah, it's good. Application protection. So okay, and this particular solution. It not only covers Kubernetes backups, which is basically the manifest of all Kubernetes resources, the persistent volume backup. This also covers the cloud databases, for example, Amazon RDS, and in the future they will be adding more services from different cloud providers. So it's kind of a truly cloud native solution for data protection and data backups, which is why I find this very interesting. A couple of other features that are a part of this particular solution are already listed on their website. And so from my personal experience, I would like to tell this. I set it up for multiple of my clients, and it literally took me like 15 minutes to set it up. It's like a very easy, like single command that you have to run to install what is required on your Kubernetes cluster. And after that, it automatically connects to the SaaS, and it's like, yeah, one-stop solution. Everything gets properly identified, and it's on. Basically, your cluster is now connected. It's getting backed up. The policies, backup policies, you can define very easily. For example, weekly backups, monthly backups, and stuff. So yeah, this particular solution is like, it provides the security, cost efficiency, and one single management plane for basically all things cloud native, backing up everything in cloud. So yeah, this is, and we should obviously be looking for solutions only like this, so that yeah, it's easy for people like us, like the Kubernetes operators, people who are delivering Kubernetes platforms, Kubernetes based platforms to people, basically add their value, right? So yeah, I think this is why this is the problem solution. I discussed everything. And last but not the least, please join the DoK Explorers community. We are a thriving community. We are really active from the last few weeks, because like there is a new cohort of interns that have just joined, and we are really eager to have more people working with us. We'll be adding more challenges. We are revamping the like challenges and everything. So yeah, more hands. We are like hopeful to get more people around with us, and yeah, feel free to communicate with Abhijit, Bart, or anybody in the Slack or Twitter, even myself. That's completely fine. Yeah, I think that's it from my side. We will be looking forward to meet you guys soon, and yeah, I think I didn't waste anybody's time now. So yeah, over to you, Bart.
Very good. Excellent overview. Excellent overview. And this is the kind of stuff, as Tapan mentioned, that we're going to be focusing on with the DoK Explorers. You've heard it from everybody. It's very easy to get involved. It couldn't be easier. All right. Jump in on Slack. You'll be warmly welcomed. We've got plenty of things to be working on. As Abhijit mentioned as well, too, we got stuff going on for Hacktoberfest. We hear some folks saying, I'm a total beginner. I know I have Kubernetes experience. It doesn't matter. All right, it's not a problem. It's our pleasure to have you with us. And as Tapan mentioned, you very much have a place with us. Tapan, you did an excellent job with your talk. I look forward to more talks in the future. Okay.
Awesome. See you, man.
Perfect. Cheers. Thanks everybody so much for joining us. I'm just going to leave a couple messages in the chat as we say goodbye. We are always very easy to find on YouTube, on Twitter, on the CNCF page, on our meetup page, in Slack, and lots of different places where you can find us. We will have a couple of interesting videos coming out before DoK Day. But if you haven't signed up already for DoK Day, please do so. All right. Very easy to add it to your KubeCon registration. You have all the info here about how to sign up. So that being said, thank you all very much for joining our first of many Data on Kubernetes Explorers Days. We will have the next one up on the calendar quite soon. You'll be hearing a lot more talks from the folks that are participating, interns, as well as other explorers that are getting in on the action with the challenges we're doing. Thank you all very much for joining us once again, and have a wonderful day, evening, whatever part of the world you're in. Stay safe and be good to each other. Thanks a lot.